We are red, red means run.
Okay, so welcome and greetings. This is Thursday, October 24th, 2019, Selectmen's meeting. If you all rise and say pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. Just a little tidbit. This day in history, we dedicated and unveiled the marker at the park in commemoration to Charles Tilton. So we're making a piece of history here. Next thing we have is minutes. We can have time for that. 10:10, we'll start with.
Page 2 of 4, is that how you spell her first name?
There's a U in there, L-A-U-G-H, I believe. And it may be an I after the E, too.
Thought it was E-I.
E-I and then L-A-U-G-H. Second line?
Well, under the heading too.
Yeah.
I think it's S-H-E-L-A-U-G-H, but I will check.
Either way,
Make sure it's correct.
Correct.
Second paragraph on that, isn't Charlie just the farmer who, I think, takes the materials from MRI?
RMI.
RMI?
Second paragraph, he is,
I thought Sheila was with RMI.
and he is too.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't believe he ever mentioned that.
Right, he said he was a farmer.
He did say that several
Yeah,
times.
He did, but I think she said in the beginning that they're both
Okay.
with RMI.
I missed it.
Yeah.
Page 4, at the top, looking us and down where it's talking about Best Buy Park sitting behind the building. I think the conclusion was that the gate would have to be on private property. Because I discussed the meters that were behind the building, and our boundary is along the edge of the building. So if we put a gate in, the utilities wouldn't have access to those meters. So the conclusion was there's really nothing the town can do to prevent that.
Do you want that noted in there?
Yes, because it sounds like the decision is going to be made later on.
Okay, because it's on private property.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Under, I'm not sure, so I'm not, this is just a question. Under page 3 of 4, under chief Officer 8 noted that educating the public is key. I thought we talked about, it said Officer Gilman will research the sidewalk measurements and color the lines of the sidewalk. I thought we were also going to measure the road. There was a couple of the roads that we were also going to determine the width for possible discussion on one way. Was that not a discussion?
Well, if it was trees in the tree district, you got Steve Pernaw's dimensions, I think he took of the road, and then the different recommendations as to this traffic pattern requires this amount of feet.
Did he take each individual road?
I thought just in the tree area where the concern was at that time. Otherwise, we'd have to go to Kevin with like the 10-year plan should have
I don't think
dimension.
making the roads one way was part of that specific discussion today.
The measurements, though, we were asking about the measurement, which included how wide is the road? Could we make the sidewalk, or could we add the sidewalk, or do we need to take away the sidewalk? Could it be, do we need to make it one way? Do we need to put in a sidewalk or take away the sidewalk? What is the width of the road? And that was part of, I think, the width of the road was the discussion, not the emphasis on one way. I think that, because like Chestnut, the width of the road on one end of it is different from the width of the road on the other end of it.
Which line are you looking at?
Under his paragraph, Tree Street discussion, there's nothing in here about the road width. And that's a discussion to be had. That's one of the issues in the Tree Street district, because you have different widths. For instance, Chestnut is a different width at the bottom by the church than it is at the top by High Street. So, looking at the sidewalk, you would have to look at the width of the tree. Look at the width of the street, Tree Street.
So if I put in a sentence that said there was a discussion about measuring the width of the road, is that
Well, sidewalk and road measurements.
measuring the width of the
Sidewalk
sidewalk?
/ road measurements would be fine.
And if at some point we could pull out Steve Pernaw's report, we could actually check to see if he did list the roads.
I thought he did list them all.
That's what I thought.
That's what we
But
referred to.
all I have with me right now is what's recommended. I don't have the report, so that's why.
Want to just resend that to everyone?
Is that recent?
Steve Pernell's report, that was years ago, so
2017. Would have been late spring, early summer.
and I have the actual measurements that, like, Peter has in here somewhere, but I don't have his actual report,
Right.
which gives the,
That's what because I thought he did.
Does everybody want a copy of that?
We did a discussion on this topic
Yeah.
beyond the minutes.
yeah, that would be nice. Make a motion, we approve the minutes of 10:10 as amended.
Second.
Good motion, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. A couple more minutes, we can go right on to 10:15 minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of October 15th, 2019 as presented.
Second.
Good motion, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Next ones are October 17th, 2019. So page 1 of 3 will be the paragraph starting with the surveillance system. Down at the bottom it says motion carried 4-1. It would be 3-1 with 1 abstention. That would be
Yeah,
myself.
yeah.
Me too. I think there was one other vote too.
You abstained on the second, so you're good there.
Oh yeah, I'm good on the next one.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of October 17th, 2019 as corrected.
Second.
Any motion and second? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous? Look at that. And that's it. If,
Kevin?
Kevin, you ready? If you want.
Yep.
You can take another map if you need to.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey.
I feel like I'm on the select board. Much as I've been here, don't get any bright ideas. I hate it when my inside voice comes out. Oh, geez, I'm starting to blush. Well, thank you again for having me. Originally, if we went back a week or 2 weeks or whatever, I don't think I was going to be on the agenda, but tonight's purposes for being on the agenda and coming to speak with you, obviously you have the handout in front of you. We've had a very busy couple of weeks after receiving rough estimate costs from Milestone Construction, and we're in the range of 4.8 million on their construction cost. And as they reminded us, and we reminded ourselves, we had a discussion that's why we went with the construction manager process, that once we saw what they were presenting us, we said, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board. So on Columbus Day, there was a meeting where Jeannie, Nate, and Pat attended down at the Milestone office, and they went through the entire project, the construction of the project, and basically called out almost $600,000 worth of the project, and they were all things that we had talked about previously. So what you have in front of you is it's pretty self-explanatory as far as we retained the brick for that building, but we did remove the other dormer. So this does have a completely, honestly, this does have a different look than what you previously voted on. Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Forgive. I
No,
hear
no.
you fine.
Say
Forgive.
hi to Gil.
Hi, Gil. I'm a
He's
little
5 blocks
punchy.
away, so.
Yeah. So you can see that the metal edging on the roofing has been removed. The brick, the front is fine, but you'll notice that there is, it looks like block. If you look in front of the purple car, that has been changed to block with a soldier course of brick. And that was about, I think it was about 48,000 or so in cost savings. The key thing is the overall cost savings of those items that you're looking in front of you. And I do not, Jeannie, do you have the overall of what we're looking for for asking them for a vote in front of you?
So it would be the They had voted on the rendering, front rendering, and the dormers, basically the look and the materials of the exterior.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm on task there.
Yeah.
So if you flip to page 2, you'll also notice that the carport roof has been completely removed. When they went to the table and they talked with their HVAC contractors, they moved the mechanical equipment to the ground. So that allowed us to remove that carport roof that we had originally discussed. And the other thing that was done is that remove some costs was the attic trusses.
And the dormers.
And the dormers were all part of the roof reconfiguration, but the attic trusses, there's no space in there for storage now. And the committee's obviously okay with that, and we'll address storage at a different time. There was really no plans to put anything up there now. We were just trying to be smart for the future.
Now we're gonna be done for the future?
Well, it's
I
gonna
didn't-
cost you a lot of money.
It'll cost money. I mean, anything we do.
Well, I'm just saying, because the basement, we have run room that's, what, 2/3 is storage for their files.
Yeah, the way that we went through it, the way that they went through it on that day, that we're good with it. And there was a lot of discussion previously, months ago, about how much storage were we really going to use up there. So this is what we talked about the other night. We voted on it as a committee for these changes that you have in front of you tonight. So what we're asking from you is to vote on the renderings that you see in front of you, meaning the change from brick to block, removing the dormers, removing the trusses, removing the carport. That's different than what you had seen.
And the hip roof.
And then the hip roof, obviously, on the front. So they were all discussions that we had had previously, but we actually, once we called all those things out and we voted on it the other night, we feel that it's important, cost-wise, to come in and be responsible, but yet still have a good project. So
If you look around in back, you'll see Tim's got up on the screen what it used to look like, the first one that you voted on.
yeah, the one that you had, Tim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one that you were just on.
That's what you voted on before, right?
Yep, so you can see that hip that's on there. It was brick all the way around. There was a metal edging that goes, that storm layer of metal that's now shingles to the edge. I feel like we're having deja vu on these things, because they were all items that you had suggested that we removed in the first place. So if you go to the very last page, you can see the detail of those, the deletions. That's probably the page that we should have gone to start with. So in order to stay on task and on our timeline, and we can keep the engineers moving forward, that's why I'm here tonight, to ask you to go with the new renderings. If you have any questions on that, certainly I can try to answer those. If Tim or Jeannie have any input on that.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
apparently there's no scale to this drawing. I'm trying to figure out a football field dimensions, and I've yet to see any plans that list them. I see a shaded area here, but I also see an outline that appears to be the current one, and it looks like it's shrunk in size, and I just want to be sure we have the...
The field there's been no discussions with us as far as shrinking the field in size.
I understand. I'm trying to figure out what these dimensions are, and I've yet to see plans. One of the other meetings, it was so microscopic because it was on like a 8.5 by 11. I couldn't make anything out.
We've had that discussion with Gary Goudreau several times to make sure that there is room for the football field. And he had it on, Tim actually had one rendering that he had showed previously that has it on there. Whether to scale,
yeah,
I can't speak to the scale piece.
Just to see either dimensions or be able to scale it, that was all.
Yep. So, I don't have an answer for you, Peter, as far as the scale piece.
I'll make a motion, we move forward with the police building changes as presented tonight.
Second.
So you don't let me hanging.
So,
Any discussion,
yes,
Catherine?
is there any metal roof left on this building?
There is not. No, we talked about the other night, we had discussion about whether it was previously voted on for all metal or not, and it was never voted on by our committee for all metal. It was, we talked about the cost, and we left that weather shield that was on there. Removing the metal roofing for the ice belt removal was just over 18,000 and some change. And what you're seeing right there is all shingle. I know you and I had talked the other night, Catherine, about what's the story with metal, and Jeannie and I talked this week, and the reason it was voted on by our committee the last time was because of it was substantial cost, and we didn't want it to sink the project. And as far as the longevity of the shingles go, obviously we want to make sure that we've got a shingle that has a warranty and a lifespan, so it's not musical shingles.
Have you removed all the dormers from this building? I'm looking at this page. And there are two that don't appear to have been removed.
One side still has them.
There's two in the back.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm, yeah, confirm that.
Yeah.
And the
There's
reason we're
discussion
leaving
on
those
taking
is
those out though.
Because aren't they dormers for the space that we're not gonna use?
They were to the attic trusses. The dormers that you're seeing that were deleted were to there, and
I'm talking about the two that still.
that are remaining.
Why are we leaving
I think
them?
those are coming out.
They're out,
I
they're
thought,
out.
I thought they were, I
They're not out
thought,
on this.
Yeah, I see that, Catherine.
that'd be a question maybe for the architect when
Yeah, when
he
they-
arrives.
Right, there's no reason to have dormers in a space you're not
Right. No,
using.
I think they're all out.
Yeah,
If
I was
you-
pointing to this.
Let me look at my notes.
Oh, from that Monday meeting, Pat?
Right, so.
If you look at the rear,
Yeah, the elevation.
the elevation, Catherine,
For whatever reason.
But it
Yeah,
shows
old
the others have been
elevation.
deleted, it does not show that these have.
On the rendering, it shows them gone.
but on the you're talking about the last page, Catherine.
The
correct?
No,
rendering,
the last page is specific.
yeah, if I may,
And I don't believe in the rear view, front view, I don't think,
the last page was an older
I don't think
page.
this picture is here.
Right. The elevation picture is an old picture, but we did eliminate the carport roof at the rear of the building, relocate mechanical equipment on the ground in the attic as needed, and reduce roof dormers accordingly as well. The decision was that it would be shown at, the carport would be shown as an add alternate. So yes, that's been removed.
Well, I can make a motion to amend Peter's motion to include all dormers will be removed.
Thank you, Jim. It
Is
also
that part
says,
considered a dormer?
No.
That's the entrance.
Okay.
it also says,
Any second on that?
I think we need, before we do that, you need to talk with the,
Did you just verify that all dormers will be removed?
Yeah, there's no reason to leave any of them.
Yeah.
There was no reason to leave any of them. The only thing I would ask you if we're having an open discussion about this, is that if we in fact move forward with this project and the taxpayers allow us to move forward with the police station building, is that if there were some reason, that there was a reason that a small dormer needed to be added for construction purposes, I would just ask that we consider things like that, if there's some reason that it's needed. If they're not needed and they're for aesthetics, then,
at that point, we come back
if it comes
to
up, we
board.
can.
yeah, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that, that if for some reason there's something that comes up during the project,
Right.
you know, if you,
putting louvers, say, can I say that
Louvers?
word?
We don't have a
covered,
second
No,
on that.
those peaks,
I got you.
thank you, right?
Do we have a second on that amendment, or is
Who
that
made
or
the
died?
second?
No one made this.
No one made a second on the amend, include all,
John made
remove
the
of all dormers.
Second.
Okay, so now we have that.
Second.
Now, discussion on the
Those
amendment.
dormers are gone.
Okay, check.
I've listened to him for 25 years.
know.
He's
Thanks,
taught
John.
me well,
That's just
but I
what you
still
reminded me
am
of.
not as good as he is. And I will never
He's pretty awesome.
be on here. Any other discussion on that? The amendment? So we'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to remove all dormers in the original motion, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
No,
Go
So
back to the
that's
original
moved, so we're
motion.
back on the original motion.
I'm reading and it's on the front. Well, those it should have on the side, but it's still talking about the front. Change this precast, I think it says trim to PVC to match the rest.
Last page.
Uh-huh. That's what the detail is. So we have plastic trim on this building?
yes, we do.
That's what the white
PVC,
is?
PVC,
That's all the white
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
PVC?
yes,
So we've had up top this entire time.
yep.
That's interesting, this is on the front entryway. Oh, so my other question is, if we move the HVAC system to the ground, it looks like it's pretty close to the roof line. And I don't know anything about HVAC sitting outside, but it should be in a place where snow can fall off the roof on top of it.
Aren't they mostly on roofs of flat buildings, right out where they're gonna get?
Right, the snow
Yeah,
doesn't,
you're talking about snow coming.
snow
from-
coming off the roof is different than snowflakes.
Well, you can also put up stops, snow stops.
No, I think it needs, I would agree, Catherine, it needs to be addressed.
Locate them so it won't be within the fall of the...
Well, at least, yeah, either.
We have something built over it on the senior center because it does come off the roof.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I don't know, maybe they're designed to take that kind of load.
Some of them are, but it's still
That
good to
definitely
protect them.
needs to be reconsidered.
Or just that we add protection.
Whatever you need to do, move them, it's hard to read, but I think, it appears that you have multiple building materials on this building. I'm looking on here, it says precast concrete?
It what, Catherine?
Precast concrete.
That would be a question for the architect when he gets here.
It's mainly my curiosity, I'm sure you guys
Yeah.
have
Well,
gone over all of that
just,
into acquiring prices off of it, but it still makes sense to have the different building materials.
yes, when we, our last discussion the other night was that when we call through this line by line by line for final pricing, for when they send out the bid, we need to make sure that all of these questions are answered. So, again, whatever questions you have that we might not be seeing, please ask. What I would ask is if you do have questions on it, whether it's tomorrow or any other day, if you could send an email to Jeannie or Tim, that would be, we can have it as an email would be great.
Looks like it's mostly concrete masonry units,
They did find obviously they found a block that was to our liking, as far as something that's.
Catherine, are they gonna all match?
A lot of work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank the committee.
Yeah, that's very welcome.
We are trying really hard. This is a lot of work.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the original motion as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No,
So, one nay.
I do have one more item, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I wish I had had time to call Catherine today. It was in reference to some emails, 2 emails. She sent me an email, I sent an email back. And it was in regard to our meeting with the Parks Commission. And we invited them to the table to explain where we're at to this point. We had a great discussion about, hey, what's the status of the football field? So, not having the answers to the questions they were asking, went back and had a discussion with Jeannie and Tim and looked back at a few of the documents that we have. I have great concern for the fact that this is, the football field work is not within our purview of the scope of what was voted on by the Board of Selectmen. So I have concern for that, because it's not, the discussion with the Parks Commission was, hey, can you put this back to the field back to its original condition? And that is not within the purview of our committee.
So I think the Board of Selectmen need to think about that, because the expense to the town, whether it comes out of the selectmen's budget ultimately, but to the town, so that football field being located is directly because we're building a police station there and moving it. That cost is directly a cost to the PD development. So I think it should be shown as part of the cost. I mean,
I don't think it should be shown as part of the cost. I think it should be separate. I think you should go out and get a cost analysis to find out how much it would actually cost. It should be a separate warrant article, and it should be put in there to say this is how much it's going to cost to put in for the ball field.
Or just put it
it's
in
like
your
hiding
budget.
it.
Or
It's
just
not hiding it.
Of course it is.
That's the most
It's a
transparent way to do it.
legitimate expense because of
It is a legitimate expense.
police building construction. It's a legitimate expense.
No, it's an expense because the town of Tilton bought the property and they're using it for a different building.
John.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Peter?
So if we do that out separate, you get new mobilization, small project, prices go through the roof. If you tack it onto the existing, they've already mobilized, they're already moving stuff. Most likely, some of the excess gravel that comes out goes in on the base, then they can screen that loam, put it on top, it's all done.
Not if it's on the same warrant article. Not if it's on the same warrant. If they're gonna have the same mobilization, same
If
company
they-
can bid it.
If they're doing the project and it's part of it, there's not an additional charge to mobilize. If it's a totally new contract, most likely it won't be this contractor because they won't deal in those small projects. It'll be a mom and pop operation.
So if we apply for financing, we
Yeah, you
apply
do.
for building a police station and a football field. That's the way it would appear, and as well as to the contractors and the general contract manager, everything would be that we are applying, or we're looking for grants for a football field and a police station. Personally, I cannot agree with that. I think it should be separate, and the budget for 2020 for the parks should include that.
We need a price to figure it out. I agree. We need to put the ball field back. I'm not against the ball field. We need to do it.
So if we hire it out, they'll be hauling in materials, additional charge. The mobilization's an additional charge. You're just going through the roof as opposed to part of the contract. They're there, they have excess material, here's a way to get rid of it on site, not having to truck it off, and they have the loam to go on top. It's a win-win, it's the cheapest way to do it.
If you're gonna do it.
If you're gonna do it.
If you're gonna do it. I'm not convinced that that is needed as a ball field. I know there's those who are, and I understand that. I, on the other hand, am not. So I'm not in favor of adding this on to the police station. If going to do it, I think we should have a separate warrant article or have it be part of the, actually, I'd like to see it be a separate warrant article, or the very bare minimum, a part of the Parks Department budget.
I think that if they could mobilize them together, fine. If they can make it work, fine. Then it would be to our benefit. But I believe if you're going to use that as a ball field, most people in town want it as a ball field, then we should do that. However, I don't think us getting up there saying at the town meeting, here's the number, whatever the number it's going to be, but this also includes a ball field. So that's not really fair and transparent to the towns, to the tax people.
Of course it is.
We're going to build a police station and a ball field, by the way, because we didn't promise that last year.
When we were at town meeting and presented this last year, we were asked specifically, will the ball field stay? And the answer was yes. So now we're saying.
We're not saying it won't stay, we're saying which budget to put it in.
Yes,
Is
let's
there
cop,
a reason we cannot, when we're bidding out this project, add an addendum
alternate.
cost or alternate cost to reconstruct the ball field?
Is that a motion?
She's asking a question.
I'm asking
Well,
a question.
no, I mean, we, as opposed to just getting into
I'm
an
still putting
argument
it out
and a
there for
debate.
discussion.
What
We're
is-
in discussion, and I didn't make a motion. It's a discussion. Could we do that? What would you think about doing that? Because at the same time, we could go out and create an RFP, and bid it out separately, and I think you're gonna find there's a considerable savings to have it as an add-on.
Mr. Chairman, can I offer a suggestion?
Sure.
I've never been able to sit with my mouth closed too long, so I think that if you were to talk with Milestone Construction, meaning the Board of Selectmen, I want to make 2 points. One is it's not in the purview of our committee. It doesn't mean that I'm against a 4 or whatever, but I am for keeping recreational fields there, I'm all for that. But if the Board of Selectmen were to check with Milestone Construction and answer the questions that you're asking right now, for argument's sake, and I think that they'll provide you answers of whether or not, of how we move forward with this, of whether or not their their dirt contractor, whether it would be cheaper for them to stay there and there's no mobilization. They have all those answers. We can talk about it all night long, but I think we have to get the answers from the contractors.
Right.
That would be by way of an add-on.
No,
So you're gonna get it from a contractor.
Let's see what it
Milestone is not our contractor,
There are construction, thank you.
construction manager.
No, you're right, Catherine. They're a construction manager. However, they have the relationships with the contractors. So we haven't obviously narrowed it down to any dirt contractors yet at all. If they're down to 3 dirt contractors, maybe Milestone, under the purview of the Board of Selectmen, talks to the dirt contractors. And we see where it takes us. And then we can formulate what it will be in March. I think there can be some resolution to it. I certainly don't think it needs to be explosive.
I think it's odd. We build a ball field, we take it away to build a police station, we go, oh, well.
We're not saying, oh,
nobody-
well.
Oh,
I
yes,
don't
you
think
are.
that's-
This is definitely
No.
directly related to building that police station. We would not be having this conversation if we weren't building a police
I
station.
think you're misunderstanding what we're
Why
saying.
are we talking about the town of Tilton's taxpayers making a football field over there when the schools that are serviced by said football field already have a football field? Why are we spending taxpayer money on high school, middle school, whatever it is, football fields? We've already got a ton of money invested over there, what with the well and the buildings and all the rest of the stuff that goes on over there. I've never been in favor of that.
Because
I gotta
our
tell
young
you.
people use that football field for football.
The high school football field is used by football and soccer at the high school level. Middle school has no place to play football games other than this field on 132.
Why can't they play at the high school?
You've got
50 feet
soccer,
from their door.
because you have soccer and football competing for the field time between games and practices. You've got varsity and JV at the high school, so you've got 4 groups vying for that field.
town of Tilton, in my estimation, is not responsible for providing practice or training facilities for the school district.
It's not
Catherine,
the only
so-
thing that takes
Catherine-
place there,
I
but
know.
let's move on.
So what do you, I just had a question.
The
So
ice
you're,
rink.
so,
We have events there.
Catherine? So, and Peter, I think you guys discussed this with the parks, but, so you're saying that the cost to reconstruct the field, move it and reconstruct it, should be included in the cost of the police station when it's presented at town meeting? Is that what you're saying? That's what I'm understanding
I
you're saying.
suggested that we have it as an add-on, so it clearly shows as a separate cost.
But separate same article,
We haven't even gotten there yet. Right now, we're gathering prices. I'm saying when you're gathering prices, get that price as an add-on, which means you can eliminate it or add it. But at least you know what the cost would be. If the same excavator digger, did that work?
so
I'll give you a good
we get time to ask some more questions.
I just
Yeah.
wonder, I would just wonder, I mean, that's a conversation you can have with Milestone, but that was not within their purview either. It was never discussion with Milestone or the architect to do that. So I'm just saying that is, to Kevin's point, it is a discussion you need to have with them, and it wasn't part of what they contracted for.
Very solid. We destroy a recreational field to build a police station and we don't put it back. That is unbelievable, but I'll call the question. Shake my head.
Vote on it. Opposed?
Could you please
This question was,
repeat the motion as it currently stands?
which motion?
There is
We're
none.
voting on
The
it
only
right
one we
now.
have, which
There is no motion, we just voted on it,
Did we
and
vote?
Pat voted,
We've been discussing.
I thought we still
That's why-
had to vote on the whole project. My mistake.
we did,
We already voted on that.
So we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on.
That's right.
Beat my head against the wall.
four in favor. Four in favor and one opposed to us on that vote.
You got that.
So you have 5 minutes before Tim's on, for your selectmen's reports. I don't know if you want to just move right to Tim, or if you want to try to squeeze some of your reports in.
For 5 minutes, Tim?
Can I use 10 seconds of that?
Sure.
Stay positive, please. We'll make this happen.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
Well, is everybody okay with having Tim up first?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, let's do the tax rate.
So first item on my report is related to the budget schedule. So tonight we'll go through the finance department. Next week we have scheduled the town clerk, tax collector, public works, and IT. Now the question is, do you want to meet with the town clerk, tax collector? Aside from the salary information that would be there, everything is really either directly related to the volume of elections or reimbursements, government reimbursements, vital records, dogs, things of that sort. So I thought I would ask, is there any opinion on that? Would you prefer to see the town clerk, tax collector?
So we're meeting later, at 6. Right. I'm just looking at the schedule. We have 5 minutes to do the selectmen's reports, and then Tim Pearson is going to do his budget review, and then yours. So this looks like we're way behind again. Got it?
I'll try to be quick. So,
I was going
When-
to answer your question.
okay, yes.
I just have a question about the training and dues. Actually, I have a couple questions. I believe there's 2 that are absolutely required, just the clerks and the tax collectors.
Right.
And my question is, do these dues include the deputy?
I believe they do. They include both. It just depends on what's scheduled and which conferences which person would go to, since they have to provide coverage. But they have closed before, so they could both attend.
So on the top of page 5, New Hampshire conference is $973 and the New England conference is $236. That doesn't add up to $1,600.
I don't, I think Tim was gonna talk about that.
Yeah,
1031.
next week would be
If we don't need the town clerk to answer that, then I guess we don't need her, but if we do, we do.
Well, since I'm before you next week as well, I'll be happy to get the answer for you. So you're interested in if those include the deputy, as well as whether they are beyond the required conferences, is that correct?
Well, 973 and 236 do not add up to $1,600, so what's
No,
the difference?
that's correct. And the reason for that is not every item that is a note here, it's not a complete breakdown of all the costs. In some cases, it shows the higher cost items.
Right, so I'm looking for
Okay.
what's the difference for, and
All right, I will get you that.
I don't know for certain, but it seems to me we've been a couple of years where the deputy hasn't attended any of these.
So, so in any event, I will get the information for you, and otherwise I will plan to ask the town clerk tax collector to come up for a short time just to answer a few questions. In addition, Public Works and IT will be next week. Police Department and Administration on 11/7. Would you like to see either the land use coordinator and review that budget with her, or would you prefer to have Jeannie and me review that budget along with the welfare budget?
You and Jeannie. That's my opinion.
I didn't get the land use yet.
I'd rather talk to you guys after you filtered out. That's why.
Okay, all
Maybe
right.
next year when
So-
she's more familiar with it, that would be great.
So next week, we can discuss that again. There'll be time to fit that in if you would like to have her come, so maybe be thinking about that. In any event, if we could move on. At last week's meeting, you requested that I work up a quote for the senior center surveillance system. So currently, we have 4 cameras at the senior center. There are 3 internal and 1 external. And we have had issues of vandalism. There have been thefts and that sort of thing, more so than at our other locations. So the proposal that's on the very next page that shows a diagram of the senior center, and forgive me my hand-drawn scratch, but given the fact that this was just yesterday that we configured this, we are replacing the 3 interior cameras, and then we are replacing one of the exterior cameras and adding 3 other exterior cameras. So if you were to look at the diagram, and you see where Grange Road is located at the top of towards the top of the page, so you have your orientation. The entire perimeter of the building is covered with surveillance, with the exception of from the porch in the front right to the corner of the building in that one little area, which is where they keep the garbage bins. We did supply an extra wire in that area so that if we wanted to add an 8th camera at some point in time, it could be added and it could look out towards the parking area on Grange Road. Yes.
If I follow these lines religiously, there's a lot of the shed that isn't covered by this. Is that true?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. This is primarily to protect the senior center itself.
Mhm.
And yet they store a lot of things in that shed. Isn't that where all the equipment, medical equipment and stuff is stored?
So the extra camera could be relocated to the back, and a wide kind of a fisheye lens on the shed. It's just very long, and so that's the other alternative that we could do there.
Well, doesn't number 4 pick up most of that shed from that corner to the road?
Yeah, I would say maybe about maybe 40 to 50% of the shed.
So you're looking at the
So
other
some
half.
shed.
Yes, but only that one, you're only going to see the one side of that shed and not the other side of the
I'm
shed.
guessing that the chiropractor probably has some sort of surveillance, just a guess,
It's
and,
possible.
you know, or the autism center. It seems like that should be fairly well covered, yes. Have we had vandalism at the shed?
In the back.
The reason.
Which wouldn't
So-
have a camera any.
Well,
Would it be
the
sufficient to
three,
move number 3 to the lower left?
No, that's where the
well, the
vandalism
three
is.
was, so there was a lot of discussion about the walls, and Mango Security is very familiar with this because they did the alarm system here. So some of these walls have spray foam insulation rather, and there's certain areas that are really challenging to get into or get through. We can certainly reconfigure any one of these cameras or add the extra wire that's up front, have it drawn out to one of the other locations, say where 4 is, and have a different view of the entire shed, if that were important.
What do you think is best?
But 3 is what covers the patio and ramp, and then also number 1, which is in the front, where we don't have any existing coverage, would also cover anybody that slipped or fell. You know, so we were also thinking in terms of liability for the entrances, the front and rear entrance.
The interiors, are they in the existing locations?
Largely, with the exception of number 6, which will look more down the hallway as opposed to where it is located now. Because
Where is it located now?
It's located up in the corner behind the door, so when the door is open, it impedes some of the view of that camera. So where this number 6 is located, the door will swing wide and it doesn't affect the camera view at all. You'll have a clear view.
Okay, we just need to have permission to do that because of the nature of the privacy. Remember, the interior, 6, 7,
Well,
5.
so number 6 is probably about 1.5 to 2 feet located from where the current camera is. And 7 is almost identically in the area. 5 is, so there wasn't a closet where the existing camera is in the front lobby right now, so the camera is actually up behind, above the closet area, which doesn't provide any coverage of the front lobby anymore, once that closet was built. So 5 would provide clear view of the entrance.
And
Anyone
there's
coming
none in
through.
the main hall, correct?
There's none in the main hall.
Okay.
And the
That was
reason for that?
their privacy.
issues.
Community action program, that they have their programs. Sometimes they have medical programs like the bone building program.
Oh.
Things
that's what
like that
takes
that go
place.
on,
That
that
makes
take
sense.
place. There's
Thank
a
you.
privacy issue with that.
Thank you.
So this is an 8-port system, but this and all these cameras are interchangeable with everything we have now. So and it'll also allow us to surveil the building and the circumference of the building from dispatch if that's permitted, so that it can be kept an eye on after hours as long as our dispatch is open. And they're all these cameras are mix and match in terms of the surveillance, so that in dispatch they don't have to have one TV for every set of cameras. They could have 16 cameras up on one TV and be a mismatch of the town hall, PD, Public Works, Riverfront Park. But this system here would complete all of our systems being the same and interchangeable and uniform.
What kind of speeds do you get from the service provider up there?
Yeah, we do have a higher speed connection there than the base. So we have, I believe it's 50 up and 200 down is what that speed is rated at. So it's more than sufficient to be able to view. It's on par with what we have at Riverfront Park. So it shouldn't be an issue. So in any event, so I have done what the board requested. When we discuss money, it's $8,344. It's a one-time charge. And that includes everything. I think that we've identified some more savings through the end of the year, and I can go through that once we, I know that Jeannie has a non-public to discuss, and that will affect some of our budget through the end of the year. And so I could help identify where I see some of this money coming from.
Is this system expandable to more cameras without a lot of expense?
One additional camera we could expand this to. So we could, the next size up would be a 16 unit, but that's
It's a lot of
kind
cameras.
of a stretch.
That's a lot of cameras.
So if you did want to put a camera right looking at the shed or any more than just one camera, you'd have to go and completely reinvest in a whole new unit as opposed to, because you can have 8 or you can have 16, there's no 10 or 12 camera
Right.
units.
So that
The price to actually mark it up to a 16 is not that much more as compared to if you can replace the whole thing. But just something to keep in mind.
So I could get, if you would like, I'm sure I could probably have the upcharge for that this evening. I could contact them and see what that difference would be.
Do you ever foresee?
So if you wanted to have like 10,
Seems like a lot of cameras over there.
so if you wanted to have 10, you could get the 16 unit and then use 6 at PD or something?
Oh, no. So these are basically ports. So they're site.
Ports,
Yeah,
okay.
they're for that site. Right. Yeah.
It would just be, you would only be able to add one, and if you ever decide you want to add more,
Yeah.
that unit would be useless. You'd have to completely buy a new one. Or the other part is if you're running an 8 and you've got 8, one of the cells goes dead in that, you can't just switch it over to another one. It's not the best to max them out, but, I mean, if this is, everybody's sure that this is all they're gonna have, it's a good way to go, but if you ever want that shed, you're gonna have to start fresh with the new recorder.
Yeah, we should get the upcharge, like Catherine was saying.
I don't know, if you feel you've got all the entry ports.
But the shed thing is a concern. We do have one extra wire though out at the front, right?
Right. And we could change we could put a camera in that area where 4 is, and have that be. They have kind of a fisheye type camera, so you wouldn't be able to zero in as much, on someone's face, but you would be able to see activity, probably maybe the entire length.
Provided they were breaking in through the side cameras, not.
That's correct. Yeah, because.
Decided.
But if you think about it, you sort of have to weigh the cost benefit of surveilling the entire shed. The value of the material that's contained within.
Yeah.
What other protections do we have for that shed? Because you're looking at least 4 cameras around that shed to do it properly. The underground wiring, that's.
Vandalism is vandalism, and it's not so much the property damage, the amount of property damage. I guarantee this building is more valuable than the shed, but you're going to want to be able to capture whoever does the
I
vandalizing.
think the other thing, if camera 4 was moved over to the shed, about 2/3 of the way down, it would cover that whole side of the shed, as well as it would be pointing towards the front there.
But in the area of 3 and 4
Right.
is where the most activity happens.
Well, and
Right here, if it was there, it would get all this, and all the way up there, and the side of the shed.
You'd have to go underground.
so the other item would be to relocate 4 to the front and have it look back, so that it would look back through that alley. So rather than looking toward the street, it'd be looking back.
If you added an 8th camera to that corner in the back where there is no camera across from 3, that would capture that end of the shed, would it not, as well?
Could you?
Put it in the other direction.
No,
If the lines,
He had a camera there that was pointing this way.
yeah, you got,
No, over here, on the building,
one here pointing over there.
Pointing back.
pointing towards the back. It would also
Yeah, that's-
capture
well,
part
that's-
of the shed.
So that's what I'm saying, is that if you relocated 4 to the front of the building looking back, so where the arrow ends for number 4, if you look at that,
But wouldn't this camera capture part of this back?
the
So if somebody came from here,
camera 3 would not.
no, but this one would.
No, that wouldn't, Catherine,
Oh,
it
I
wouldn't,
see.
because you have
This
a
one.
pergola. Catherine, you have a,
You have a lot of
you have a
obstacles.
pergola there, in a porch.
But doesn't that, oh,
So I can tell you that I do think it's a sufficient number of cameras for
I do
the
too.
investment of the building
I do too.
for right now. If you like, if you want to approve this now, and then I would be pretty certain that I would have the price for you this evening, and I can give that to you hopefully before the end of the
Yep.
evening. So maybe we'd just hold off.
price for what?
The
I just go with
upcharge
those,
from the 8
Tim,
to 16.
In my opinion, just go with these.
Yeah, do you, so I think I asked, maybe it wasn't answered. Do you see a need for 16?
Do I? Only if you really wanted to surveil the shed, but is the shed in good condition, and would it need to be rebuilt at some point?
The shed's in excellent condition, it's
It's
the
not a case
material
of
inside of
adding
it is worth
16
it.
cameras,
No, right,
if I could make that clear.
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah, you
case
could
of
add
16.
12.
You could add 10.
right.
Yeah.
It
But
just
you
gives
can't
you,
with the
it gives you
add
the
10
ability to add over 8. So right now, there would be 1 additional space.
So I guess the correct question is, do we need more than 8? Obviously, you didn't think so, so.
I really didn't.
It's just if you
And
want to
I'm
cover the
okay with
shed.
it. I
Whatever you
mean,
want.
I'm not a camera expert. If you
Neither
think
am I.
this covers it, I'm all set with that. I'm not gonna try
Uh,
to second guess you.
Okay.
Want to make a motion, somebody?
I would make a motion that we accept the plan that Tim has put together for the cameras at the senior center.
Second. Was that a second? I couldn't tell with that.
No, because I was gonna make a motion, if he had enough money at the end of the year, we go ahead and do it.
Oh, we will.
Oh,
I'm just accepting the plan. If
Oh,
we have
I
the
know,
money,
that's
we
why
can
I'm
go
not seconding
forward,
it.
but
Yeah, I was like.
And I'm going to be
Well, we
getting...
don't have a second, so let's
Okay.
see, we have a second on that? Second once?
On what?
Second.
The current?
A motion to
Just the
accept
plan.
the plan. So the motion is to accept the plan that Tim has outlined under bullet number 2 on your sheet from him. So we're looking for a second.
question,
I'm just going to wait till we get a second, and then we'll go into discussion. No seconds? That's it.
I'm
Motion
good.
dies.
Good enough.
So I'll hold off for now. I'll have
Might have an
make a
additional
motion
motion.
that we accept the proposal from Mango for $8,344 for the Tilton Senior Center surveillance, and follow through with installation
As soon as possible?
as soon as possible, with monies left over from this year's
Second.
fund.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second. And everybody understand that?
I do.
Okay, and
I just want
Joe,
to know where the
discussion.
money is going to come from as soon as possible.
Tim said
you-
Specifically.
Specifically, yep, so 2 places. One is town hall maintenance and repairs, and the other is a personnel line where we'll have
Okay.
additional money.
did you want to, I usually don't, when we have a motion going,
No,
I usually
I-
don't ask for public
Not-
comment, but if you got something quick.
No, thanks in all fairness, because
Yeah.
the motion didn't have a dollar, now it does, and I
Yeah.
didn't know if it was gonna be a not to exceed amount,
Yeah.
and what percentage the users of the building are contributing funds to this. This is a 50-50 split between the seniors and the town, because they're the they benefit from this, or is it the town gonna foot the bill on the whole thing? That was my question.
Well,
He's got his hand up.
the answer to the best of my knowledge is the town is footing the bill for the town building.
Okay,
Regardless of what happens to be in there, the building has been broken into several times and vandalized, so that's where we're at.
Yeah.
I think it's penny wise and pound foolish. I'd rather wait to see what the 16 unit costs, because it sounds like we probably need a couple for the shed and we only have room for one. And so at this point, I'm a no.
I should have that cost momentarily.
So we have a motion second. Any further discussion?
Do we want to
Can we
read on
delay
it?
voting on the motion until he has the cost for the 16? Rather than just voting it down?
Mm.
We could table
I
it.
can see.
I didn't say
Could
table it, I said delay
You
voting
can
on it.
delay it or
Delay it.
And is that tabling?
Yeah, then we'll pull it back
We
off the
table it and then we pull it off the table.
table to be until later on this meeting.
Yep.
So it's not just blank table.
So no,
So a motion to table?
yes.
Okay. So
And we have a motion to table.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of tabling this until later on during this meeting?
Aye.
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 it's $600 more for the 16 channel.
Want to pull it off the table?
Would anybody like to remove this from the table?
So that would be
for the
8,000.
Make a
discussion?
motion to remove it.
Second.
Table.
Sorry.
Second. Hello.
Can't just throw that
All
out.
those in favor?
Aye.
Bring it back to the table.
I'll
Aye.
amend my motion to not to exceed
$8,944.
That-
9,000.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second, and that's not, it's for item 2, but not to exceed $9,000. So we have a motion and a second on that, and discussion. Okay, there's no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. That was
So
easy.
that was on the
That was
amendment.
great.
That was on the
Tim,
amendment.
that was pretty fancy.
That was on the amended
Yeah,
amount of
Tim,
9,000.
That only took.
So now that becomes the new
That
motion.
becomes the new motion. We haven't passed the motion
Now
yet.
you gotta pass the motion.
Minutes.
Now you gotta pass the motion, because that became the
She
amendment.
amended the motions.
Okay, that's right, thank you. So the motion's been amended to not exceed the $9,000. We're going to vote on, as I stated earlier incorrectly,
Voting on something again?
They voted on the amendment, now they're voting on the motion as amended.
amending that.
Okay,
So now we're voting on the motion. All those in favor, and that's at the $9,000. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. One abstention.
Okay, so item 3, tax rate setting. So just to update you very quickly, 2 things from last week. We were waiting on the school and also Lockmere Village. The school was held up because of the municipal aid that was announced in the new budget, the new state budget. So as you know, we received some of our municipal aid, which you'd think of as the old shared revenue. And the school system also received money as well. So they had some issues that they had to work out as to how that was going to be handled. From my understanding and talking with DRA and the school, that's going to be used to reduce the tax rate. So here, what you're about to see on the next page is simply, or on 2 pages back, is simply our town portion, because theirs is going to change quite a bit, and I don't have those numbers yet. But Lockmere Village has promised that they will have their issues sorted out, and that it should be sorted out by tomorrow, and by next week we should be able to set the entire rate. If you go forward to the page that says Town of Tilton 2019 tax rate estimate, you'll see our MS 232 appropriation of $6.308 million, less our estimated revenues, which are $2.3 So and once you add in the war service credits and overlay, we come up to an appropriation or an amount to raise taxes, rather, of $4,136,391. So this figure is $318,000 higher than our 2018 amount to raise from taxation. So that's just one component to keep in mind. But of that 4.136 million, with our increased valuation to $620 million, our tax rate is reducing 77 cents without the use of any fund balance to $6.67. So a reduction of the local rate by 10.3%. Now, what I did was created a table for you below, and I'll be recommending between $100,000 and $200,000 of fund balance to use. Currently, we have an unassigned fund balance of just over $706,000. And the one caveat is that the reduction from the school might be really big. So I just haven't had a chance to spend any time to really sort that out, what it's going to mean for us. It's going to be good for taxpayers, let me put it that way.
The reduction from the
The
school?
reduction from the school, right. Because that money, as I understand it, is being used to reduce the tax rate for the towns.
So we don't know that for certain.
We don't know that for certain. We will next week. So that's why...
Can we hold on voting on this?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not anticipating. This is just for you to look at and to see what the difference... So you can see here in the table, just so that it's easily understandable, is that where it shows impact of fund balance used and it shows the amount, it starts at 0, and then the first item is at 50,000 and it goes up by 25,000 all the way up to 300,000, and you can see where the town rate goes from $6.67 down to $6.19 at a $300,000 used.
And what were you going to recommend?
Between 100 and 200,000. What I'm hoping to see is that we can offset a majority of the land purchase,
Okay.
the impact of the land purchase. But I'm also looking at what our amount to raise in taxation is. The problem that taxpayers, I feel for people that that are in a quandary with their escrow accounts, because when tax rates change precipitously from year to year, banks adjust those, but with a forward-looking formula. So that if it goes up $100, they'll have it go up $130, anticipating the next year is going to be up another $100. And so they'll start front-loading additional monies going into an escrow account. And the same thing goes if there's a reduction. Sometimes the adjustments really can wreak havoc on personal budgets.
That happened to me once.
Yeah. So and that's not to say. I mean, I would love nothing more than if we're able to use less fund balance because the school is taking up the lion's share. So then we have a little bit more powder that's dry for next year. But I anticipate this will be between 100 and 200,000. And keep in mind, too, that whatever this 2019 rate is, that's going to be our first bill for 2020. So, and then at the end of 2020, we're going to see the adjustment. So it can be challenging. So we really need to see what that school value is going to be. But at least you can see the changes. They're all positive, anywhere from a 10.3% reduction to a 16.8% reduction.
It's a 10.3% reduction, so our tax rate went from $7.44 per thousand to $6.67 per thousand.
Right,
However,
without fund balance.
Yeah. However, everybody just got their property reassessed, so the values
That's
of the
correct.
house went up. So
For some, yep.
a good percentage.
Yep.
So it doesn't really. I don't want anybody to get the thought that your taxes are going to go down.
No, that's right.
Because the tax rate went
That's
down.
right, and this would be based on your new assessment. But that's why I pointed out the increase between our amount to raise in taxation from last year to this year. So again, if you look a little bit higher up, you see last year in 2018 we raised $3.817 million in taxation. This year we're looking to raise $4.13 in taxation without use of fund balance. So that's a $318,000 increase. So anyway, I just wanted to give you the figures. Next week, we'll have some time to set aside, and we'll be able to set that rate, I have no doubt.
Were you conservative on your estimated
Thanks,
revenues?
I'm
We usually
always,
are,
I don't want to be too conservative, because, but they're not wildly optimistic,
No
let me
gambles,
put it
huh?
that way.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you.
So then, on item number 4, this is an FYI that as we get closer to the warrant article generation, which we'll be starting to discuss this next week, we are going to need to retain bond counsel for the warrant article at the 2020 town meeting. And Divine Millman has done this for us in the past. They're very good, they're very reasonable, and my recommendation would be to retain them for this activity. They will do things for us without any charge during the preparation phase, but we would not be able to go to any lender with the size bond that we're looking for without a bond counsel having reviewed and written an opinion on this. So this is just more of an FYI, just keep in the back of your mind that this will be coming, and I'll be making a firm recommendation once I have their firm estimate as to the cost.
Is bond counsel a specialized job, or is it lawyers?
is lawyers.
They're lawyers, but it's specialized.
It's specialized lawyers.
Specialized
So
lawyers.
that's gotta be spendy.
Good reason to hate
I
them.
think they're very reasonable, but in any case,
Bond
the
counsel.
last item I have to cover with you before going through my budget very, very briefly is that on Veterans Day, when the offices are closed, I've scheduled our partner firm to come in and assist me in reconfiguring our network. Now, this is not hardware cabling. This is simply moving our Active Directory from one virtual server to another, upgrading one of the releases on the server, and then having to go through all 14 workstations and migrate people's profiles, which is the most time-consuming portion of this. So people will hate me on the 12th of November until probably the 16th of November, but we'll get through it.
Any possible unexpected occurrences?
Always, yes. But it was the one opportunity that we had when the tax collector's office was closed, so that we did not disrupt business. And I will, without objection from the board, take a holiday at a different day. Lastly, on my finance budget, which is on the very last page of this, my report.
Tim, on that,
Yes.
do we want to get consensus or something on that everybody's in favor and think that's a good idea?
What, that he takes a holiday another time?
Yes, that's
No,
fine.
that it's done on over that time period, in case there's a question
I'll
out
leave
there
it up to you.
behind it. It's,
Leave it entirely up to you.
Yeah.
You know.
we all stand behind you.
Great,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't wanna stand in front.
Don't
In other
push too
words,
hard.
we're pushing you to the front.
I'm not gonna second guess that one.
All right.
Thank you.
So on the finance budget, it is really pretty straightforward. We have the stipends and the wages for the secretary. We are trending a little bit higher in the secretarial wages, but not precipitously. And I think it's just the fact that we have someone that's new and going through their first budget season. But we also budget for money for the budget committee to attend conferences, to get materials and that sort of thing. Sometimes it's used, sometimes it's not. It's optional on their end. We have the audit here, along with the second year of our actuarial agreement, which is already accrued. So, and then you see my salary, the treasurer's salary, the deputy treasurer's salary, and then my supply line is pretty staid. Postage as well. I try to do as much as I can electronically in terms of payments, but you know, we have had some increases. And then also when we do our federal reporting, even though we don't have to send these certified, when we haven't sent these certified, sometimes they don't show up and we get a nasty letter. So for the last 3 years, I've been sending our federal reporting certified. So it's a little bit more of an expense, but we're assured of proving that it went. Printing, this is where I'll do multi-year purchases, and I'm going to have to purchase checks very soon, running out. So I buy 2,500 checks at a time. And then in the training and dues, so I like to attend the NHMA conference, the Government Finance Officers Association, and then there's usually a GAP update, which is the Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB update, as well as Budget and Finance update sessions. And then probably the most important one here is the interest on our line of credit. So this is going to be very challenging for us this next year, and it may require an adjustment at town meeting. Primarily for this reason. First of all, where we've borrowed $2 and then $2.5 million on an annual basis and drawn it and repaid it, drawn it and repaid it. This next year I'm looking at a $3 million line of credit because our cash needs, I'm anticipating, are going to be increased. If the bond goes through, we will also structure a bond anticipation note, which would pay for the construction during the time that the bond is going through its process of being funded, and which is a typical kind of thing. So that there will be some changes. Those I've planned on as part of the project, but in terms of this, if the bond fails, we have a $194,500 payment that we will have made at that point in time to the architects and engineers, and we will need to either restructure that and finance that over a shorter period of time, 3 or 5 years kind of note, or absorb that into our cash flow as best we can. And that's what I've planned on here, is that we would utilize the line of credit to continue to finance it, because the interest rate is lower than any rate that we would have in a short-term note.
I have a question. Let me make sure that I have this right in my head. I'm tired. So, did you just say that even if we don't build a police station, if we don't do anything over there, we're going to owe $194,000?
No, so let me be clear. The $194,500 was approved at last year's town meeting for the architectural and engineering services. And we've paid to date about $167,000 of that, roughly. That was that $111,000 check from last week. So in other words, we have expended the money, but we have 5 years of borrowing authority to borrow to repay the town, if you will, that cash flow that we're out currently. So it's really a.
But we're going to pay some people $194,000.
We've already paid $167,000, and it was approved at town meeting last year. Yes.
So even if we don't get the building, we're down almost $200,000. No matter
Yes.
when they approved it.
Yes, but that was the warrant article last year for
I got it.
for that.
But I just wanted to make sure that,
Yes.
because that's going to get heaped on the hundreds of thousands of dollars we have invested into a police station that we don't have.
With the 194, it would
Where?
be close to 400,000.
Where?
Yeah.
So we'll have $500,000 into this phantom building.
Not quite.
It's a lot
Oh,
of
more than that.
It's a lot of football fields.
That's a lot of football fields.
So, in any event, so that's probably the one area that if we're going to make a change, that's where that change is going to be, because we may require higher borrowing, and we may end up having to utilize that line differently than we have in the past, if you will. Okay. If there's no questions for me.
Good job.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much.
You might want to, do you want to do your reports and I'll come later after the...
We split Tim into that spot.
Right here, so
So-
let him stay.
Matt, you ready?
Do we have a recycling bin up here yet?
No, no,
I have
where-
a note
where-
from
where
Gail
did-
to clean out my thing.
Where
and I
did, where
just-
did it go is the question.
Yeah,
Well,
where
there's a
did it
couple
go?
of places that we put recycling up here.
We do?
I know.
Yeah, there's one by Al's desk. There used to be a green one.
Yeah.
Where would the green?
All right, anyway, there is a request for community service to come back. There's a gentleman that's gonna come in and fill out a form for community service. It's 40 hours. I'd like to utilize some of that up at the senior center. We need to revamp the contents of our shed to make more room. So that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. He'll be coming in to fill out that form. Could we please get in touch with Kevin? As I walked down to Riverfront Park today, I had to use the Cedar Street sidewalk, and as I was using it, there was a lot of broken branches and covered with leaves and an abundance of acorns underneath those leaves. And I'm just thinking of the kids. There's about 16 to 18 kids that walk that sidewalk every morning to go to school. I'm just thinking that there's broken branches that are about that big that are hidden under the piles of leaves, and I'm just thinking that if he had a chance, maybe he could either blow them to the side or pick them up or do something, because they're on the sidewalk itself, and they're blocking the sidewalk.
There was a section of black pipe.
There is still a
Is
section
it
of black.
still there?
It's still, but it's pushed to the side, right where the kids meet to get the bus. But it's pushed right to the side, so they still have room to get by it.
There, I asked.
Jeannie,
Joanna
you know where that
to-
location is?
Yes, you said it right on Cedar Street.
Cedar Street, it's
Okay.
it's the sidewalk, yeah. That's it for me, thanks.
Yeah. Catherine? You're on.
Went with
Forget the microphone.
Chuck Kathy, the chief, to the Veterans Home to look at their community room.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of questions, all of them were answered. Chuck had a concern about entryways into the room, that was resolved. He is currently drawing up a floor plan, so we asked that we hold off till next week till he has a chance to see how everything fits.
Sounds good.
So that went well.
Thanks.
The other is just a question, are we gonna work on a stipend policy, because we're coming close to that time of year? Because we don't treat all our boards and committees the same. And I've suggested that, over the course of a very long time, my suggestion is look at what the Conservation Commission does. Not necessarily copy them, but I think what they do is very good.
We can put it on the agenda for next week.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, because there are people that don't show up for 6 and 7 weeks at a time.
Well, you have, so the budget committee, it's all by, that's by RSA, whether they show up, planning board's the same, but, yes, we should
Yep.
have some kind of uniform policy.
Okay, and Peter?
Yes, Tilton celebrates Saturday, October 26th. Children's costume parade is 4:30 to 5:30. Trunk or treats 4 to 6. There's a zombie walk 6:15 to 7:30. If you go to the town website, scroll down a bit, you can find it. It's there. Also, Jeannie, can you get a message to Kevin? The intersection of Sherwood and East Main, the island delineator post, so that when you're turning at night in the dark, so you don't go over the island, is gone. Someone ran it over. So when you're turning left, heading east, and turn left, you can't see the island at night when it's dark.
So that is Sherwood and East Main Street?
Yeah, right across where Market Basket, Walmart come out opposite AutoServe.
Okay. Yep.
That's it, John.
Okay, next is Joe.
You took my stuff.
Oh, sorry, Joe.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Mine's pretty quick. I'd like to thank the Public Works Department for the great job they did on the Amnesty Week. I had the opportunity to go down there and drop off some things, and those guys were really working hard. Everything was very neatly organized and looked very well set up to promote a good work flow. And thanks for in the extra hours, guys. That's it for now.
I can chew up 15 minutes if you'd like before.
Yes.
And you don't spit it out.
All right, spit it out. So the first thing on my weekly update under the action section is the cleaning contract, the facilities cleaning contract. So per your request last week, language of the new contract matches the current GNC contract with the addition of noting cleaning of Riverfront Park on Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the AM. So I'd like you to, if there are no objections, to approve that contract so we can get that resolved.
Where is it?
In the signature file.
Was in the FYI. I mean, that should be signed.
Very excited.
Next, the True Green accident site. So the capstones were replaced this week. The safety fencing went back up today. I believe I sent you all an email on this. The integrity of the wall is in question, and I've contacted the DOT bridge maintenance personnel, and they are coming to assess the wall.
Are we talking, Jeannie, near where I think it's a box culvert comes across that vicinity?
But it's at the toe of the, you can see it because the river's so low. So,
They're aware of that. That's not something new.
and he
Indicated it.
indicated that in the email.
But they have no money to fix it.
Till the road caves in. So what we talked about was the next step after the capstones were put in place is to get railing back up. And Catherine made a suggestion, rather than putting it into the capstone, which is the way it was done, the railing, is to put it alongside the capstone so it's actually going into the soil instead of into the capstones, which I thought was a good idea. And if you like that, I would go to Superior Fence and actually ask them to take a look at, because they gave us the quote based on putting it into the capstone, drilling into the capstone. So that would be my first step. And then the second step of the question to all of you is, do you want this railing up, or are we, and hopefully maybe the DOT comes back to us and tells us their assessment, but let's say they come back and assess and they say there's nothing wrong. Are we gonna continue having safety fence up for 2 years, 3 years, or are we gonna put a railing in place? And then the next question is, you know that we're fighting with the insurance company, and are we gonna go ahead and pay that up front and then go after them? So something to think about, but if you agree at least tonight, I will go to Superior Fence and ask to give, to give us an assessment of if they can do the fencing along the capstone.
Everybody in agreement with that?
I am.
Great idea.
Who owns the land there? Do we have to get permission from?
Jim Cropsey.
Yeah,
Well,
we have to
that's in debate. I mean, that's why we signed the MOU with Jim Cropsey and the MOU with DOT. Because, and that's the challenge we have with the insurance.
So
because
putting
no
it
one's-
alongside, putting it in the ground, do we need to get permission, or do we need to tell him that we're gonna put it alongside the ground instead of the capstones?
I have been in regular communication with Jim Cropsey. He's all about getting this fixed.
Well, I'm fine with
But he
it
is
then.
not taking ownership of that property.
No, I'm
And
fine
if
with
he
it.
gives permission, that indicates that he has some sort of a stake in it.
So if you look at our town records currently today,
Yeah,
I went over that with Dari, he is the owner of that property. He does dispute that.
okay.
So
Where's the
But
tax?
Jeannie's right, he's always been in favor of getting this done.
Okay.
What's the tax?
So we're
credit?
good for the, getting the fence, and I think that was a great idea. You know, if it gets hit or something again, it'll be
So
loose with spots.
I'll try to get him to come out next week and have that information for you next Thursday, so that we can figure out what our next step is, because, like I say, I don't think we want safety fence up for the next 2 or 3 years. Because if we're waiting on their insurance company, it's gonna be
And we have
long.
enough distance between where that fence would be and those trees
I believe
for
so.
handicap accessible
I'll
sidewalk.
check.
I was trying to look today, it looked like a couple of the trees were dead.
Yes, they are, and that's one of the other things that they're gonna have to replace are the dead trees.
So we could actually move them.
Yeah.
Very nice.
All right. I did confirm with Birch Hill Kennels, that contract's gonna be up. The price is gonna remain the same. What I wanted to find out from you, do you wanna continue the contract with them? Do you want any changes? And if you're good with it, then I'll have them draw up a new contract for 2020.
Question,
Yes.
how much did we actually use Birch Hill Kennel last year?
I don't have any idea. I don't.
Because
get
if
that
we're
information.
paying, what is it, $7,500 year in, how much?
5,500.
If we're paying $5,500 and they went and they took it and boarded a dog or a cat or something.
I think we are required to have a
Yes, I
facility.
get that, but if we're not actually sending things over there, there might be a cheaper option to just cover the basics. There might. $5,000 is
The
$5,000.
last time we looked, the Humane Society was more expensive, and the
Mhm.
distance they have to travel.
I remember
The-
the last time.
The group in Franklin said they didn't have the facility or capability of providing.
Now they're
those
adding on.
services to us.
But they've had a big push and they're adding it onto the facility down there, which may or
And
may not
maybe
impact us.
2021 is the time to, but I would continue to look at them, but if they haven't added on, I know in the past we've asked them, and they didn't even want to consider it at this time. So we always should.
It was a pretty small facility down there.
But I can tell you their show was used more than 4 or 5 times.
Okay. I just want to make sure we get our money's
I know those 2 dogs.
worth. And a goat. Okay, I'm good.
All right, so you want me to go ahead and see about getting a renewal contract?
I think we should get I like what Joe is suggesting. I think that we should go ahead and do the renewal contract this year, but be prepared for next year to go on out and see what Franklin, what other facilities are around here that perhaps maybe go out for bid.
Give it a shot.
Whatever you bid, it's competitive, so you.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
send it out
exactly.
to everybody.
All right, sugar maple on Tilton Island. We have 3 bids for the tree removal. We talked about this last week. New Sky at $1,800, Magoon at $2,500, and Chippers at $2,970. This is just to remove the sugar maple. New Sky did give us a quote just to trim the sugar maple at $900. So, really want to find out, what do you want to do?
New
We have a
Sky,
motion on the table to remove it, right?
You do. There was a motion made.
New Sky for 1,800.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second discussion. Does this include removing the stump and the roots?
No, well, not removal, but ground down because,
Some great.
yeah,
You
stump
don't, right.
down.
And it would be finished over so people wouldn't trip. And, I mean, those roots are pretty gnarly.
Oh, it's not, the contractor's not going to finish it over so that it's,
No, they're gonna cut it down and
Grind
grind
it.
it.
The ground level.
Yes.
Right.
Well, they usually go a couple inches below ground level.
Well, we can smooth over the top.
Right.
Work.
I thought we couldn't there because of your wetland.
No, you can,
you can't,
yeah.
we're far enough away from
So, I know we already voted to cut the tree down. I think it was a wrong decision. The tree was over 100 years old. And there are opinions out there that it could be pruned, and the roots were left exposed, and dirt could be put back on top and save the tree. It's a tree that was probably planted back when Charles Tilton, perhaps even as a gift. It's a sugar maple, a fine-looking tree that needs pruning and care. That's it.
Aye.
Anybody else, any other discussion?
No.
Oh, okay,
Go ahead.
okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Better down.
And that was the new
Blue
sky.
Sky.
At 1800. Right. The next item is the Tilton Northfield Island ownership conveyance. We did receive a quote. I've talked to two attorneys who are both familiar with this project, which I think is helpful because I don't think we want to pay somebody to learn about this project. So both of these folks are familiar with this project. One is proposing to charge $5,000. Second is proposing to charge $3,000. And what they're both saying is that just a simple solution to begin with, to try to see if we can get it taken care of this way, the lower cost way, which is analyze it, and what would be included in what they do is analyze the documents, the deeds, the warrant articles, and the history, determine the options, for example, a quitclaim deed from Northfield, an assignment agreement, etc. Contact the Attorney General's Office Charitable Trust Division to discuss the proposed action, consult insurance carriers, record final documents. That's what they propose to do. The complications, if there are complications, a new estimate would be required, and that would require title research, trip to the Superior Court, probate courts, and publication costs, and that could go up to $10,000 or $12,000. So both of them are saying, let's try the simple solution first and see if we can get it resolved that way. But if they can't, they're both saying the same thing, just be aware that you might have to take the next step.
And Northfield is willing to share this expense with us?
Well, if you recall, what I have to do is get the approval from you. Once you have said yes, you're picking who you want, then I'm going to write a letter to Northfield and ask them if they're going to share in the cost. But I have communicated with the chair of their board, and they are waiting for the letter.
I'll make a motion, we choose Attorney John Teague for $3,000 contingent upon splitting the bill with Northfield.
Second.
So motion second, any discussion?
This is the same John Teague who was the attorney for the school district.
Yes.
Yes. He's a smart man.
What did you say? I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, could you speak to them, Mike?
Oh,
John Tague is the
It
same.
was school district, yeah, got it.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
So we have,
It's 4-1, I think.
how many opposed was it? Okay. That's what I thought it was, okay. 4-1.
And the only other thing is the FYI. I did give you all a copy of the Avatar contract, the current and the proposed. So if you want to take a look at that, because next week I'd like you to, if you got any questions, let me know so I can get them answered for you.
Is it changed?
It has a little bit.
Okay.
So that's why I gave you both contracts to take a look
Okay.
at.
Got it.
But I'd like to next week come back and get that moved forward. And I still have a non-public, but we can do that later.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Okay, so we have a public information session at 7. 5 minutes early, I just didn't know if there were any stragglers that were expecting it to start at 7.
I would prefer to wait until 7 so that we can prepare to start.
That's, I think that's the best
So-
idea.
It's nice to see a crowd in the audience.
So I,
Do any of you have any questions or concerns? You got 5 minutes.
Jeannie, did you have?
so,
Cedar Street could be paved before winter.
yes.
That's what we're shooting for.
I spoke with Kevin yesterday, and it's still on target for 2 weeks. Now, there was a question about ordering the risers for the sewer, and that was ordered yesterday. And that's what the delay is.
And I think Eric has another question. Eric, go ahead.
There is a house.
Manhole.
Excuse me.
Sump pump is falling back onto Cedar Street.
I believe the public works director is aware of that. The one
It
is
just
you,
started, I think, yesterday.
the one as you head north on the one
Yeah,
from Winter. He's aware of that.
that'll be a problem in winter.
Yes, it will.
We have 4 minutes of questions. I know everybody's got questions. Did you hear about the tax rate? That will take up 4 minutes. Predicting it's going to go down, Tim, to,
Not set yet.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
that's
set.
the goal.
We're
The
hoping,
town portion of it.
the town portion. So we were talking about that tonight.
Will the chief be at your
VIP is coming in front row seats.
Gave it to you. Well, I have a question that might require the chief to answer.
Okay. Well, you can say
How's Sandy?
Doing well.
Good, excellent. My regards.
Thank you, back here when I get home, Steve.
So I was curious.
So earlier tonight, and right before the meeting, we unveiled the new sign down at the historical marker down at the park. I don't know if anybody saw that. It's been covered with baggie or trash bags for a while, but it was then changed over to a beautiful unveiling
Was that silk? Was that silk?
Linen.
That-
linen.
Oh,
Linen.
was
But
very
it's
nice.
there for everybody to take a look at. It's honoring Charles Tilton and our community.
amazing.
He does just
Cut my thumb off.
You run out of lumber?
Table saw.
You run out of wood, you start chopping.
Walnut. Got it all bloody and everything.
That's why I use tracks.
I cut myself. Oh, yeah.
I'll sign that. That's enough.
But I can have
Under control or what?
Yeah, I just got certified today.
I knew it was.
The Volvo garage looks good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I drove by it yesterday. I was like, oh, look at that.
It's coming.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, I did delete it.
Thought it was a Halloween. This one. This one kept throwing some heat.
We'll push you back
Just
there.
fix it up.
Interesting.
They had to wait up there.
Listen, everybody has light bulbs.
All the way down and all of a sudden it releases on him.
Hey, Pat? That doesn't look right. I should have put on a new blade. Be less to talk about.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our police station building committee public information session. We don't want to confuse that with public hearing. We made that mistake when we scheduled the first one. This is an update and progress report to the work that we've been doing for the last 2 years on hopefully what we will see to the end as a new police station on our newly purchased property on Sanborn Road. For those of you who don't know me, I don't recognize some of the faces in the crowd. My name is Kevin LaChapelle. I'm the chair of the police station building committee. I'm a taxpayer here in town. And I'd like to have the other members of our committee, even if you're not a voting member, stand up and just say your name and if you could introduce yourself just real quick.
Some of the blame.
Some of the blame. I can do it if you'd like, but I just, if you could at least stand up. There you go, Pat.
Pat Constantino, Selectmen.
Nate Buffington, Tilton PD.
Jason Wright on West Main Street.
Tommy Damon, Cale Hill Road.
Eric Powers, Cedar Street.
And we have Gary Goudreau with us and Brian, and I'm going to chop your last name if you don't mind.
Garris.
Garris, all right. I'm going to practice that one, Brian, I promise. Brian is from Milestone Construction, and Gary is from Goudreau and Cowan Goudreau Associates. So we've been working with them on this project. There have been a couple of other folks mixed into committees that we've utilized to this point. We had Catherine Dawson, who sat on the construction manager selection process with us, and we have Tim Pearson, who's been working with us in front of the curtain and behind the curtain, doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and our chief cheerleader, Jeannie Forrester, has been working hard on this project with us. So, the police station building committee, we set timeline and task to keep us on task and make sure we're on timeline. And currently, to date, Gary, you don't have anything in your hand, do you? You're not going to throw anything. We are right on the mark on our timeline. We knew 2 years ago when we started this that it was going to be a tough push, and we're into the second year of this now. We were hoping in the first year to make things happen, and we realized it would be too much. But even to this date right now, we're close on our timeline, but we are on task. We're going to talk about outreach and communications and the next steps in that project. So the police station building committee, what have we been working on? We've been working with the architect, the construction manager. I want to make it clear that the construction manager process that we voted on as a committee and that the selectmen voted on to move forward with, the construction manager process has allowed us to put conversation on the table with pricing and able to kind of shape this project instead of just going out for a sealed bid and having documents land on the table and then voting on it. So I'll talk about some of the examples and the successes of that as we move forward tonight. It's allowed us to look for opportunities to save money is the key thing, but yet still have a solid project moving forward. Moving forward so we can hopefully have this police station. The guaranteed maximum pricing, the December 12th date is the one that is chasing us right now. Am I right by saying that, Gary? That's...
Yes, but Brian should also.
That was pressure, Brian.
I feel it.
They're not sitting at opposite sides of the room on purpose. They're fine, they get along and they speak and they smile. But we've been working hard to try to meet that December 12th deadline for the guaranteed maximum pricing. And we obviously need to get that through our committee and to the Board of Selectmen. The outreach communications, we do have a partial list that's in progress. You can see here with the Parks Commission. As we've gone through this, we said, hey, we really should have the Parks Commission here in the room so we can have a conversation with them and hear their feedback. The Budget Committee, we made an attempt to meet with the Budget Committee this week just to kind of tell them where we're at. I actually had some good feedback from a couple of the Budget Committee members that said, hey, you guys have been open and honest to this point. We really kind of have an idea of where you're going. We want to see the numbers like everyone else in town does, right? The Planning Board, we met with the Planning Board the other night. We had a really positive meeting with them. And this is our second community information session. I'm sorry to kind of stand to your side here, but the original scope, first cost estimate, we identified with the police station building committee and the guys from the police station to kind of help us get to this point. And we had renderings that you'll see here in a bit, rough cost estimate, so we kind of had a ballpark of where we're at. And the original project that we brought to the table and handed off to the Milestone, and received from Gary Goudreau and then handed off to Milestone. We're right around, just remember these are ballpark numbers, these are not chiseled in slate, no one has a tattoo of the numbers that we're talking about tonight, is the $4.8 million in construction cost. That's the first rough number that we've received for the construction cost of the building. Okay, is everybody following so far? Because I want to make sure that we want to make sure that in a public information session tonight we're clear on that and there's no false information. That those are rough numbers based on. I'll talk about the process very quickly. That we tell the construction guys what we want. They go out, they talk to their contractors, the subs that they have, and they commit to, yes, we're interested in this project. They go out to 3 plumbers, 3 electricians, maybe a couple of dirt guys, and say, hey, can you throw a number at us? And they're throwing rough numbers based on what we have for a scope of a project right now. We also have $512,000 of other items that will be at our expense as taxpayers. We start talking about access control, surveillance, intrusion detection, the dispatch equipment, furniture, fixtures, the water connection. We'll talk about utility in a little bit further. Other than water, we'll talk about sewer, architectural engineering costs, administration, the special inspections, the construction testing, and the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, AV equipment. We also have a $230,000 contingency fund. Tim, do you want to just touch on that a little bit on contingency so it's clear with us?
Sure. So in this process, we have to allow, especially where we are right now, and very early on, we're using a conservative estimate to account for those things that we can't foresee right now that might come up during the construction phase. And this has been a recommended figure to use, for the project. As the project cost changes, that may change as well, and that's based on a revised estimate, which you'll see a little bit later on.
Before I go any further, I always like to stop and kind of check in with folks and just make sure, are we good to this point? Have I said anything that maybe has been confusing, or any questions that you might have to this point? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Question.
Okay.
Maybe for Tim. The $230,000 contingency, if we do not use that money, what happens? Does it just go into the general fund? Does it come off the bond? How does that work?
So we would know during the construction phase, by the end of the construction phase. So where we would have a bond anticipation note and then a bond So we would have that opportunity to absorb, any savings in that process before financing. We're not financing money that's going to go to the general fund, in other words. And just keep in mind, those were all original figures, first cut, before anybody looked at it.
So, again, before I move any further, I kind of came into this tonight just like assuming that all of us know about the police station land and the building project. Is there anyone that's sitting here tonight this is brand new information to them and they didn't realize that we purchased the property? Because I'm really skipping ahead of all of that.
Was it for a ballot a couple of years ago, a year or so ago, a ballot question? Was it that we would approve, you guys? I remember it was something.
So we didn't vote on a ballot. We voted on a warrant article at our town meeting
To let you guys.
to buy the property. So
Where is it? Where is
the
it?
property is on, it's on Sanborn Road. So the back entrance to the Tanger Outlet.
Oh.
There's a cemetery on the right-hand side on Sanborn Road.
Okay.
Just after that is a football field, a recreational field that's there. It was owned by the Archdiocese, and we've attempted to buy that property several other times, and we were on a 99-year lease with it. The Archdiocese was not interested in purchasing the property. Selling the property. So when we sat at the table and went through 173 properties in town, we narrowed it to that area, and we threw out, hey, we really should ask them. And we asked them, and they said yes. It assessed at $450,000.
You definitely need a new location for the one deal.
Oh, certainly.
What's the target date?
The target date? Well, at town meeting, this package will be brought with hopefully all of the details and as much information to make an informed decision at the town meeting. And we're going to ask the taxpayers to vote on a bond so we can build the police station. So we own the land. Now we will be asking to build the building and furnish it. And then next year at this
Won't be in
time.
there by Christmas.
No. Well, next Christmas. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Hopefully next Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. I did not pay her for saying that. But thank you.
When is the town meeting? In March?
Yep, March the 2nd.
Second
Weekend.
Tuesday in March is the voting, and Saturday following is the deliberative session where this will be taken up.
Our committee would like to think that we give you enough information so when you walk into the town meeting, you can make an informed decision. Obviously, there'll be some discussion, there'll probably be some debate, and hopefully you have enough information where we can move forward with building a police station. Okay, so where are we at this week? Let's talk about where we've landed as fresh as tonight. We had rough estimates of 4.8 million come back, and at our committee meeting, we all kind of looked at each other and said, okay, that we took a swallow and said, all right, is there anything else that we can look at and trim or maybe do some things different so we can get that cost lower than 4.8 million? So on Columbus Day, a meeting was held down at Milestone Construction, and a small group of us, of them I should say because I was not present, went through this project and changed some things that allowed us to have an overall cost savings of right around $600,000. So the changes that we've made were simple things. Tim, can you skip to elevation? There you go, perfect. So things like, let's talk about just the front of the building for now. The previous images that we were looking at, right here, you can see that blue band, that was metal. There's that front hip roof right there to the right that Tim's on with the arrow. And then on the front brick face of the building, it was all brick all the way around the building. And we had asked if there would be a cost reduction if we went to a decorative block. So right now we're at a decorative block. It's a red decorative block. You can see that. And if you're familiar with construction, right on the top of that, above the block, is they call that a soldier course, just to give it some decoration. That allowed us to have some cost savings. And so on the outside of the building, the view is, right now, that's what we're talking about. The Board of Selectmen actually voted tonight in the affirmative to move forward with this rendering that you're seeing right now. All right, so some of the exterior changes that we made, Originally, we had a carport roof that we talked about at the last informational session. It was, would allow for 6 spaces, covered 6 spaces with a carport, and the HVAC units were going to go on top of the roof for that. We've eliminated the carport, and the HVAC and the air handling, all those things will be set on the ground, which we need to have a discussion about, just protection. I have a note for you. So those will be set on the ground, the carport roof will be removed, relocated that. And we removed all of the dormers from the building, and you could see, there you go. The dormers have been removed, so there's some cost savings there. And we originally, for several meetings, talked about having attic trusses that would allow us to have storage space in the attic. And we're at just regular trusses, no storage space right now. There could potentially end up being some air handling in there. The other thing we've done is we removed the 175 kilowatt generator from the pricing structure due to the fact that we will be applying for a Homeland Security Emergency Management Performance Grant. So I think that's actually, that number is, we're right around, I think it's $125,000 total that we're looking for in federal funds to support the project. Some of the interior changes that we've made, eliminating items being utilized from the current police station. So we have storage lockers up there that are fairly new. They're in excellent shape, and the police department feels that we can repurpose those into this building. Removal of the Emergency Operations Center petition on the inside, leaving it open as an open space. So one of the concepts that we had originally talked about on the original rendering was in the multi-purpose room, right there where it's white, and you can see in the center of that room, that multi-purpose room, we had figured for a divider. So the guys from Milestone and Gary Goudreau came up with a great idea of, hey, if we're not going to do the divider, let's at least upfit the building. There's minimal cost to it, and if we can put the divider in later on. For some reason, we get to a point in this project where there's enough cost savings, we may be able to put that divider back in. And the purpose of that in that multi-purpose room is so we can have 2 rooms. And if we do have a natural disaster or where the Emergency Operations Center opens up, it allows us to have a secondary room and some more privacy on the other side of the divider. It only makes sense. In my experiences throughout my career and working with Chief Cormier, it only made sense to try to divide that off. And you can see up in the top corner, in that multi-purpose room, can you take the arrow right there? It allows us to come directly from, that one's actually training storage. Right. Yep, so we have a couple of doors that can go from the dispatch center into that one room, and it allows us to walk directly in and out during times of large-scale emergencies. Okay, Tim, we'll go to the other changes. Site changes, eliminating the impound lot. There was a little bit of a cost there. We currently have an impound lot that the selectmen just voted on to make that more compliant. So it doesn't make sense to duplicate that, and we're allowed to take that out of the project. Eliminate the rear paved parking lot to the rear of the building. There'll be some cost savings there. The guys from Milestone came up with a good idea. Let's not put curb in there. Let's leave it open and graded so we can still park there when the time comes to pave it. Or maybe we end up at the end of the project where there's enough money where we could. Those points are all considered. Adding employee parking spaces near the employee entrance. Relocate a light pole from the rear parking lot. As you can see, there are little items that might seem like they're little tchotchke items, but they do make a difference in cost savings. So when we start looking at the overall really plot of the land here, Gary, would you do you mind talking about the changes there? I can certainly kind of fumble my way through it, but do you mind speaking to those changes?
I don't mind.
Thank you.
Orient you, Sanborn Road, Route 132 is running along the bottom edge of this drawing. There's an existing curb cut to the site. People access it right now for the purposes that they've been using the site, and that's in the middle. It's identified as the public entry. So that's where we'll bring the folks who will be visiting the police station or going to use the ball field. Those two gray rectangles that you see are, the bigger one is where the ball field will get relocated, and the smaller one is where we're proposing to have parking associated with that field. Staff for the police station will come into a new curb cut between the building and the existing cemetery. In the back, where there's a communications tower and an emergency generator, just beyond that was where we originally had an impound area that Kevin mentioned has been taken out of the project. We also had about 17 parking spaces back there. We eliminated 11 of them, took the other 6, and added it to this front corner on the right-hand side. That makes it a little bit more efficient because we already had a driveway there, so we were literally just adding parking spaces. Whereas in the back, we had a double-loaded corridor-type scheme where you had to provide a driveway and parking on either side. So that was done to help, again, trim some of the costs during this value engineering process. That's probably it for...
Thank you, Gary. There's one piece that I probably missed at the beginning of the presentation, was the fact that we committed at the beginning of this project that we wanted to be as transparent as possible. We wanted to be able to update the Board of Selectmen, the community, and anyone involved as much as possible. We wanted to be open with these discussions. Hence the reason we chose to go with the construction manager process, because it allowed us to have open discussions about what things cost. So what I would ask of you is, as we move through this, if there's something that you're seeing that we're not, everyone has a clear view from their seat. If there's something that you see that we're not, please, please, please speak up. If there's something that we're missing, that's why we're having public sessions. We may not have thought of everything. Maybe you have a particular concern in your experiences in life that you think could enhance it. So we'd love to have that feedback. What are the next steps? Other reductions to be considered. We talked about roofing materials tonight with the selectmen. We're looking at finalizing some bathroom flooring in public restrooms. Originally, we had, at the beginning of this week before our Monday night committee meeting, we talked about eliminating, I think it was $11,000 worth of bathrooms. And it was, we were really pinching to save money. And we looked at it and said, $11,000 for bathrooms, really? We're going to have a community room that's going to potentially hold between 50 and 60 people. Why are we cutting things like bathrooms? So someone suggested outhouses. No, yeah, definitely not. So someone had suggested outhouses, so that was put back in, and we realized that we were starting to cut things that shouldn't be cut. But things like bathroom flooring, when we start talking about tile floor versus spray-in floor, things like that, that's why we have a construction manager, so we can look at the pricing for those things. We're starting to work on bond and warrant article development, financing options. At every meeting, Tim keeps reminding us about the bond rates and how low they are right now. So, actually, I think I woke up at like 3 o'clock the other morning thinking about bond rates, and I'm thinking this is not right. So, it's working, Tim. Additional community information sessions. There will be a what am I saying? A bond hearing. There'll be sessions where that will need to be voted on by the budget committee and by the selectmen. So it'll start to get a little steeper than just public information session. We've been seeking public input throughout the entire project, so I can't say that enough. Go ahead, Tim. So that's the moment everybody's been waiting for, right? To see what the numbers look like. And Tim went ahead and put this together for us today. The question was asked to our committee from a committee member, and is, well, what's the number we were all looking for? And I think we all in our minds have different numbers that we're looking for. I would love to build a new house for $100,000, but but for what I'm looking for type thing, and maybe that's unrealistic. That's what I built back in 1999. So to think that construction costs haven't gone up. Now, the key thing with construction costs for us all to remember is that we are in an extremely volatile market for the construction world right now. That today's construction prices in October could be different than the construction prices in the springtime. So that's why we have a guaranteed maximum pricing, where Milestone's going to go out there and get some solid pricing for us, so it's not to hold the volatility down. I don't know if I'm saying that the right way, kind of bouncing around with it. So when we look at the owner's items, it's an incomplete list. Those are rough ballpark numbers that we're looking at. Those could go up, they could come down. We talked about the contingency. We talked about a little bit about the construction manager, construction costs that they're bringing forward. That's the number we're at now. The architectural and engineering fees already approved at the town meeting was the 194.5. So we're hovering right around 5 right now. I've been asking the question, the committee's been asking the question, how do we get that number down? And we talked about private-public partnerships, and at the beginning of this project 2 years ago, about how can we engage the business community, how can we try to offset some of the costs. And there's been tons of creative ideas that we've talked about, and not really sure if they would work. Jeannie and Chief Cormier approached Dennis Goddett, who's here with us tonight. He's going to speak to this in a second, hopefully, talking about how we can engage the business community and those who support our town. There's a reason why they're here, and we support their businesses, and the businesses support our communities, our community. So Dennis, if you'd like to, without any further ado, we can just talk about what we're starting to craft.
Well, a few things I've mentioned, and one of the most important is the fact that we've looked at this for some time, and this rate environment is pretty spectacular. You know, this is, one time rates were low. I thought this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity when I was doing construction on my own, and here we are, deja vu, and I'm saying this is a once-in-a-lifetime rate opportunity. At some point in time, we all know we need a new police station. And the fact is, I don't see it ever getting any better than today as far as borrowing goes. Community policing has changed. It's changed a lot. Our world has been turned upside down in the last couple of years with the opioid epidemic and all that brings along with it. And with that being said, we need to be thinking about the fact that it's not just about a police station, but it's about attracting and retaining quality police officers. That happens through facilities. It's just not pay, it's just not hiring. Where they work, their work environment is part of retaining and recruiting. You know, we hear the things about Google, and they have pinball machines in the cafeteria and so forth. And granted, that's an exaggeration, but it's important to remember that the kind of work, the stresses that these officers are under, they deserve this kind of facility. I'm going to give a lot of credit to the selectmen in that I think that they were very prudent and responsible in looking at this and trying to make it as functional but cost-effective as possible. And the other thing I would say to the selectmen is that as a business owner at Exit 20, who's worked with a lot of the other business owners at Exit 20, the communication between Town Hall and those businesses has never been better. I feel that we're engaged and we want to be part of this solution. So I was asked to represent the business community and take on the challenge of how we defray some of this cost. Keeping in mind that at the end of the day it's paid for by taxes, the business community pays a big portion of those taxes. But with that being said, we're still supporting this because we recognize how important it is to have a functional, successful police operation in our town. So with that being said, I've taken on a personal challenge that I am going to work with the business community to try and raise $450,000 for this project. And I throw that out there now because there are going to be decisions made on should we have bathrooms or not have bathrooms? And my point is, think about this for the next 20 years. Not just today, not just next year. Think about how this plant is going to be outgrown. And trust me when I tell you, when I build things, it's not a month later I think to myself, God, I should have made it a little bigger, I should have done that. And when I say I should have, it's a lot more expensive to do it after the fact. We're investing in 20 years here. I'm going to work with the business community to try and raise a significant amount of money to help defray some of this cost. In addition to that, AutoServe, my family, we're going to start with a $25,000 donation towards this project. Is that I'm hoping my example will inspire the other businesses to get engaged and appreciate the fact that there is a true partnership between Town Hall and those businesses. So that's where we start. I am in favor of this project. I would also step back, just in case not everybody's familiar, but that land purchase that was made at that location, it was totally brilliant. And the selectmen, the town, and those decision makers are owed a lot of credit, because as far as I'm concerned, they bought that land for 10 cents on the dollar. So we've got a great location, we've made a great buy in the land, and I think the selectmen have been very prudent in how they're building this project up to make it really cost effective for us. So as I said, I'm in favor, and I'm going to work with them to try and defray as much of this cost as possible. So thank you.
Dennis, thank you. All right, that's it. Dennis stole the show. There's nothing else to say. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. So I've been a huge believer in private-public partnerships. Dennis and I kind of whispered back and forth while we were waiting for this, but I would love to see the private-public partnerships in our community really just start to thrive, and this could be the monument project that really pushes that forward. Dennis, I just wanted, I have to make this correction, and I apologize, but Dennis said this is a 20-year project. We have been saying all along that we would love for this project to creep up on the 50-year mark. Whether we add on to the building or however that's going to be in 50 years, probably everyone in this room will not need to worry about what happens in 50 years.
I was just thinking my own life expectancy.
There'll be a defibrillator in the front entryway. You know, personally, I worked in a municipal building that was built in 1970, and next year it will be 50 years old. And it's a block building. It's a commercial building. It was built for its purpose, and I'm amazed that it has worked for 50 years. And I've been saying this all through this whole thing, that if you look at the picture in the case over there for when they built this building, we're still here. And I would not want to have to pay to replace this building now. So just keep those things in mind. Tim. And I'm going to let Tim speak to this slide because he's far more fluent.
So just to give you a little background, the most recent issue from the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, which is just one source of funds for a project like this, back in July of this year, they had an offering that for a 25-year bond was at 2.7%. Since then, we've had a Fed rate cut. There's another one that's projected. We'll see if it happens. But as Dennis said, we are in just a unique rate environment where rates are still low. And you know, I keep thinking back when I first bought my first house, I had a first mortgage somewhere in the 18% range back in 1981. So and refinanced it to 11, thought I had died and gone to heaven. So in any event, we're really at a unique place. If you compare this payment of $282,000 to what we currently have for long-term debt, the only long-term debt we have currently is sewer debt from the Lockmere Sewer Project and one other smaller project. And that equates to an annual payment of $196,000. Back when we were carrying 61 Business Park Drive as well as the sewer debt and up through 2016 and 17, our long-term debt that was payments that were budgeted in our operating budget were just over $400,000 at their peak. So, not to say that that's an amount that the town can absorb, but were we to approve this at $282,000, added, and as we just heard, the business community is going to help bring down that total bond amount. So we'd be looking at somewhere, based on these figures, of an increase of $78,000 in outlay over what we paid for long-term debt in 2016, just as a reference point. So the tax impact, and we have not yet set the 2019 tax rate. That's going to be done this next week. But so based on the 2018 rates and valuations in 2018, you can see the impact. This is an annual amount. So on a $100,000 property, it's $55 additional. That is attributable to that bond payment. And that bond payment includes principal and interest, obviously. So a $200,000 property would be $110,000, and so on and so forth. So it's, this is what we're looking at right now. It's entirely possible that when we are getting closer and we have our guaranteed maximum price from Milestone, and we have all the other numbers identified, and we know what we're looking at in terms of philanthropy and donations, that we'll be able to, have much better, much more firm numbers to look at. But this is how these rough numbers look on an annual basis.
All right, thank you, Tim. Do we have anything after this one?
No, that's it.
All right. So this is the part where you have the opportunity to ask questions. It's your meeting. We just wanted to make sure we could bring as much information to you tonight. Certainly I had no idea that Dennis was going to open that can up today, or tonight. That's exciting stuff. So we still have a lot of heavy lifting. I think the heaviest lifting is in the next probably 2 months for us. And I think I said that the last time, but it seems like it keeps getting heavier. But the work of everyone who's working on this particular project, it's really coming together. And it has had a positive vibe since the beginning. And we really hope that when we finish our town meeting in March, that we can say we're going to be building a new police station. So certainly you being here tonight, whether you're in support or undecided or against, the fact that you're here getting the information, we appreciate that. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure whether this really relates to this completely because you're talking about the building itself, but for the future, are you planning to use the ball field and try to get families to come and kind of get to know the police and maybe have ball games there and stuff like that, kind of family type of programs? Are you thinking about that?
I would have to redirect part of your question to the chief as far as attracting the families.
That's what I love about the location, because it's perfect for doing all that stuff, and you guys all know me, you know I love that stuff.
I know.
So that's exactly what I want to do there, and we will.
Okay.
So we made a commitment at last town meeting that, keeping that property for a sports field or whatever it is for activities. There's been other offers to jump on board with us to, hey, we'd like to partner with you on that property. And we've chosen to keep it as the Tilton Police Station land because we feel that it's important. And we're working through the particulars. We've met with the Parks Commission and we've had those conversations. But there is no intention to build anything there at this time. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what the future costs of maintenance for this building as compared to what we have now? How
That's
going to impact the budget going forward?
That's a great question. I can't answer that question. I guess Chief, I don't know if you can address that.
Just the place we're in right now, some of the things that we'd be looking at if we did move would be replacing the roof. There's some other stuff at some point that, it's a 30-year-old house. It's like your own house. At some point things start to go. And so that's staring us in the face. But there's some critical safety issues within the building that have been lingering there for years, like the booking room is in a hallway. So we have to book prisoners in a hallway where the secretary and dispatchers have to walk by, and it's just not secure. So those are some of the big things that won't go away unless we totally redesign the existing place. But I think everyone knows when you own a house at some point it gets 30, 40 years old, you're gonna have to start to replace some significant things over the years. And I really don't think it's worth investing that money into that building, honestly.
I understand that. I'm thinking more of utilities and maintenance and
So
that kind of thing.
I think, and I'd like to, defer to some of the products going in the new building to Gary and Brian maybe to speak to.
Well, certainly from an exterior standpoint, we don't really have anything on the building as it's been designed and approved that would need any maintenance. The white trim that you see is AZAC type trim, which is white plastic, so it doesn't need to be painted. And we've got brick at the front entry, and the remainder of the building, as we expressed earlier, is decorative masonry block. So all of that is pretty much no maintenance. I mean, there may be some repointing 30, 40 years down the road, maybe, but the windows are all commercial grade. All of the hardware and doors and floor finishes and ceiling finishes are all heavy commercial grade. So we don't expect any of that sort of thing to need maintenance for quite a while. What Kevin was talking about, a 40 or a 50-year building. For the most part, the only thing that I can think of that might start to go, because we're already doing LED lights in the building, so they'll last for quite a while as well. We have drywall surfaces, much like anybody has on the inside of the building, so there may be some maintenance associated with that. They might need to be repainted once in a while. They might get dinged up. But all the door frames are hollow metal, so they're not going to need to get repaired. The doors themselves will be solid core wood. Hardware, as I mentioned, is heavy commercial grade. So I think all of the things that you would like to put in because of the investment that the town is making are in there. We went through a fair amount of value engineering, as Kevin mentioned, to pull out that $600,000 figure that you saw. We did put on, it wasn't all the bathrooms that we talked about eliminating, but there were fixtures that we put in there from a practical standpoint that really should be there, but they're above what the code would require. The code requires a minimum. But if anybody has ever been anywhere where you have an assembly use, you know that code minimum just doesn't cut it from a practical standpoint. So luckily those fixtures went back in there. That's why we call this process value engineering, because sometimes taking that out is not a good value. Putting it back in is.
Well, and if you're asking about utility costs, the building is significantly larger than what we have now, so there will be probably higher costs in terms of natural gas and electricity, but
probably better
and cleaning.
But even one of the things, if I can jump in, is starting at the beginning. Do we want a wood frame construction, or do we want block construction? What's a 20-year, a 30-year, or 50-year building? We went through that. We had a heated discussion about, do we want to wrap this thing in brick? Do we want to put vinyl in the back? Do we want to do hardy plank siding? What's going to be pressure washed? What's going to be painted? What's going to be peeling off in 20, 30, 40 years? So we went rounds with that. We talked about interior, block interior, drywall, heavy-duty drywall. For utilities, even the detail and level of separation in HVAC units to try to make the building as efficient as possible, having separation of various temperatures and air circulations and removal of dangerous gases for evidence and weapons cleaning, and trying to have as green a building as you can have and still have it be functional. I mean, right, 2 years of this. So it's a great question that we try to jump on. How efficiently can it be lit? How efficiently can it be heated, cooled, maintained? I'm a metal roof guy. I'm still pulling for that, because I think a 30 or a 40-year asphalt shingle is. But you know what? Sometimes we had to come together and get some meet in the middle on some of these things. So.
Jeannie brought up a really good point about the work that we're doing with Eversource to try to keep the energy costs down. So the efficiencies that we can build into the lighting, some of the HVAC units, they have rebate programs for commercial industry. So that's we're certainly going to take advantage of that. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, thank you.
And you're waiting so patiently.
Were solar panels brought up, because we live at White Rock Circle, and they're passing a thing for solar panels for Eversource to be energy efficient. Is that incorporated in?
And solar panels have not been included in the project.
Would it have been beneficial? Probably not.
I honestly can't speak to that.
That's a whole different animal.
Is it, okay, my other question too is, our son is a Massachusetts State police officer, graduated in June.
Nice.
God help us. So that's our interest in it too.
Nice.
You know, law enforcement. Now, like to the environment, are you gonna increase staff? Because you'll be in the building?
No, not now, and not unless the community demands it. The size of the building really has not been considered of where we're gonna go with staffing.
Well, right, 'cause I don't know what you have for staff.
Yeah, that's not within our purview as far as our committee goes.
Strictly for the.
Yeah, that would be something between the chief and the board of
We have
selectmen.
plenty right now.
Oh, really? Okay, I wasn't sure, you know, what you have. Hopefully you don't need any more, but,
We have plenty.
good, okay.
Yes, sir.
I think it's time to go with the times. You need a definitely new location, which we have a beautiful one, I've heard, I've seen. And the building, you need another building. You gotta keep up with the times. Go for it.
It's a must.
Go for it.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
What's the size of the actual lot that the station's going on?
4 point.
No, that's the
Oh, the size of the lot that the station is going on.
Right.
Do you want square footage or?
No, well, yeah, square footage, we know that's 43,000 square feet in an acre. How big is that lot taken up of the 4.6 acres?
Well, the building itself takes up about 12,200 square feet. That's anywhere from a third of an acre, plus or minus, and then there's the paving area.
Okay, but the whole parcel that the police is gonna be put on, that, how
Yeah,
much?
it hasn't been subdivided, so it's still all one parcel, so
Oh, okay.
there really isn't, there's no fence between what the building will be and then the ball field. It's gonna be open.
Okay.
So it hasn't been subdivided beyond that
No,
4.5
that's
acres.
what I was wondering, yeah. And she was talking about solar panels, but I guess that's like solar. There's a lot of them going to solar.
Well, we have a sizable roof over by where the carport roof used to be that faces due south. So if between now and when construction starts, there's a public-private partnership deal that could get worked out for solar panels, there's no reason why they can't go on that portion of the roof to face due south. The rest of the roof doesn't lend itself to facing in a direction that would be solar panels, but that one piece does.
How big is that piece of roof that we faced out?
It's probably close to 90 feet long,
So how?
and it's up on a slope, so I'd say maybe up the slope is probably another 35 feet. So 90 by 30, 2,700 square feet.
So are you into what the amount of solar panels you would need to help with that building and electrical cost?
I'm no expert on that, but what I have seen done at a private school that we've been doing work at is they've been putting solar panels on a lot of the buildings that we've been doing for them, and they sell it directly back to the utility.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to run electrical equipment on their own, they just sell it all back.
It's like money in the bank type thing.
You end up being a small substation for the utility.
Yeah.
And typically it's amortized out over a 20, 30, or 40-year time period on what the cost savings would be. So
It would
depending
be
on.
interesting to know what the cost would be to put something up there.
If you adjust the substation and not use it.
It's certainly worth looking into.
You know, over the length of the building, over that time, you know, it might be cost effective at some point in time, or even if they could get money from the community, like what Dennis was saying, and put something, huh? Yeah.
I don't know if you want to get into a little bit about the transparency that we're trying to not only do public hearings like this for the public, but, you know, like what Tim had set up with our
Yes,
Facebook page. I
No,
want to make
no,
sure
thank you.
so people are aware of it, because we can have the best, you know, outreach, but if nobody knows about it.
Oh, thank you, Chuck, that's a great point. Since probably not since the beginning, but for the last year and a half or so, we've had a Facebook page that's it's had minimal information. So we have spiked up to we now have our own website.
So if you go to the town website, you should be able to click on to the link, correct, Tim? Yep. All right, so it looks like he's probably gonna do that for us. So we do have, this is what the town website looks like, sorry, Peter. And you can click onto that link and it has updates. So as Chuck said, we want to be as transparent as possible, so we're trying to post as much of this stuff as we possibly can. All of the minutes are obviously public and you can read those, there's some videos from the beginning. But a lot of the information that we're talking about tonight is on the website. Most everything is on the website, so you can cruise through there. If there's something that you don't see, maybe that we've talked about, or maybe we haven't talked about, is to send an email, or simply call one of us. You can call Tim, you can call Jeannie, you can call the chief, and we can direct those questions to the committee and try to answer those. So, is there any other questions?
I just want to make sure that we make people aware if you talk to the neighbors, get their ideas. We want to make sure when it comes time to go to, the public meeting, we've answered as many questions as we can prior to. This way, if it's a question that we need to get some detail on, we want to get sufficient time to get those questions answered. Because sometimes when you're at the spot, you're there, you ask the question, if you don't have that answer, we want to be as prepared as we can be, but we also want to be as informative as we can. So I just want to make sure everybody is talking about it. Everybody's asking those questions, that there's no dumb question, you know what I mean? It's like we want to answer on them, so.
Thank you, Chuck.
How can we help with funding? So private citizens, civilians, whatever, not involved in any of these things, because been there, done that, we're retired. How do we help as just Johnson public? We make a donation, is a donation plan in place?
Do you want to speak to that, Jeannie?
Sure. So one of the things that we talked about, the chief and I and Dennis, is Dennis still?
No, Dennis stepped out.
Dennis up. So is the business community and what they're going to do, and then the citizenry, the residents, because we like everybody to be involved. And so what we're talking about is a brick paver type of project, or maybe it's a tile project. Inside the lobby, you could buy tiles. So as a citizen, if you wanted to make a contribution of, let's say, $45, you could have a tile with your name on it, or in memory of someone, and it could be put on the wall, or brick paver on the ground, or benches. So there are going to be a lot of opportunities, from a very low-level donation up to the highest level. So
how would you know about it? I don't have the internet.
Yeah, well, we're working on that now.
Oh.
So,
Once we have a program in place, so what you heard from Dennis Gaudette tonight, that's like fresh off the press. That's
right.
like, that meeting happened this week, and that's brand new fresh. So that program is being crafted as we speak.
Thank you.
And hopefully, times, I can hear the clock ticking, so we're coming down to crunch time. Chief, if you're gonna do benches, can I get mine without handcuffs? Just want to make that clear at the beginning of this.
Fire red, right?
Yeah, painted red. So in unless there's any other questions, in closing, just thank you. And hopefully we can get your neighbors, your tax-paying friends from Tilton at the meeting. We want as many folks involved in this as possible. This is not my building. This is not Chief Cormier's building. It's not the Selectmen's building. It's our building. And we're building this as a community. And again, if we're building a building for 50 years, there's probably a chance that it's going to outlive most of us. So I'm really excited about this. Our community's excited. We've had a lot of good teamwork that's gone into it, even during the heated discussions. And so that's what we have for you tonight. And we're going to try to present as much as we can until voting day. So hopefully I didn't miss anything tonight. For those who were involved in the project, did we miss any points that needed to be made from the Board of Selectmen? Anything that you wanted to?
I do have something to say. This building has been stripped down to bare bones. Kind of. Cinder blocks that look like bricks and so forth. And I look at the building we're in now, and I'm glad that those people weren't as cost conscious. Maybe that's not the way to say it, but we have a beautiful building with aesthetic elements on the outside of it that make this building unique, make it a showplace for Tilton. And we're not getting any of that. It's more cost effective, certainly, but I kind of like the second gable thing. That's just me.
You might want to move this way a little bit.
I get it. No, I
You're about to
truly
be
get
checked.
it. When we voted to cut those things out of the project, I voted for it as well. I understand, and the most important thing from my point of view is we get the police into a decent building. And if that means the dormers come off, aye. If that means the facade thing changes, aye. I want to see the police department get their building.
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
I just have one last question. So, once this is done and everybody moves in, are you going to speak, or are you even involved in what the selling of the old police station or land or whatever will help to defray the cost, or is that not part of this committee?
It's not part of our committee.
Okay.
Certainly, that would be handed off to the selectmen. When they open that building, I'm going to be there because there's going to be a big party. I'll be on the front steps.
Chief's paying.
Yeah. Chuck.
In reference to what Joe was talking about, everything that you just mentioned, we originally voted on a number of different aspects, different outlooks, like we've discussed as far as for roofing to siding, we've looked at a number of different ideas. The brick was our first choice, but kind of exactly like you said. A lot of us that are on the committee are looking because we feel we need the police station, but we're also taxpayers. So it's not just we're going in to rubber stamp something. We're going in for the simple fact that we need a police station. Sometimes you gotta compromise, not the integrity, maybe the looks and the cost to get it down there. We're still not where we want to be, but sometimes you gotta stop where you have to stop and accept what it is, and we're working to that point. I'm not sure we're there yet, but I think, you know, we've gone back and forth, and we still have some time ahead of us. But I think what you're saying is heard and understood with us, but I think, you know, it needs to be understood. That's why we're, with this committee and the selectmen, are working together with making this affordable as we can, so we can get it to go.
Before you leave, you really should understand that if the cuts that we're talking about that we've made to this point, that we're still comfortable with those cuts, that we're delivering an adequate police station for the vote. That there was a line when we started talking about, okay, where else do we cut? And we started talking about cutting square footage. We said, no, stop. This is not what we have worked for 2 years. We did not sit at this table for countless nights to talk about, let's scale it down and make it too small. That would be a huge mistake on our part. We've had, all the stars have aligned on this project to this point, as far as, you know, finding the right property, buying the right property, the rates, choosing our construction manager, choosing our design. Everything has really worked, and we've had a ton of support, so we're not willing to cash all of that out by any means at all. So don't think that we've scaled it back to the point where it's going to be not what we need. So
I think if you did that, scaled it back and cut on the square footage, in 12, 15 years, you'd be back in the same damn boat.
bingo. Exactly. Yeah.
Or shorter.
Yeah, or shorter, depending on where we are as far as growth in our community.
And I think from a safety standpoint too, we decided that we weren't going to cut back on the program because it's not just square footage, but it's also the safety that goes along with these offices. Having the right places to do the job that they do today, but as you heard the chief say, some of it's being conducted in a hallway. It's just not safe.
We went into, and you've heard me say this before, sir, at the last meeting, is we toured other brand new police stations, and they were outgrown the day they moved in. And they said, yeah, we should have gone with 2 or 3 days with our Sally Port instead of the one. That's what they cut back on program. Their booking area was scaled down to a bench with handcuffs on it. That's not the type of professional police department that we have in our community, thankfully. So, you know, that's why we did the tours, so we could see what other communities have done. One in Somersworth, it was built, what did we say, 13 years ago?
Probably 11 or 12. Summersworth PD was built 11 or 12 years ago. We walked in and they said, yeah, this room's too small, we had to move this over here, we should have never done that. And you're talking about a building that's 11 years old. So, just some of the examples.
How many did you tour?
We toured three total, and we've talked to a ton of others about their emergency operations center. Emergency operations centers are kind of, in the last 10 years, a new thing, and certainly with a community like ours, the emergency operations center will be used, so.
Of all the ones you toured and talked to, how many of them were satisfied with the size that they built?
None.
No.
We could add, certainly we could talk about, don't hit me with that, please, Vern. We could talk about adding another 5,000 square feet, and at some point, we probably would, grow into it, but that's not what we're talking about. We need to build what's adequate and what we feel is needed. That's why we have professionals, that are helping us out with that piece. So Chuck, did you have something else?
I was just gonna state, part of the reason that the lot that we have, years down the road, if something comes up and there's a need, there's room to grow here. One of the things that we've discussed with other police stations, other fire stations, other locations, what they have is, that's it. They have no room for expansion, whether it be 20 years down the road or 30 years down the road, things change. That's the significance of the lot that we have, that we really are blessed to have.
Well, don't look too far, because we're in that situation now. We're bursting at the seams of where they're at right now, and you can't go anywhere else. Whereas if we fast forward 25 years, that's how long you've been in your building, Richie? Over 25 years. So you fast forward 25 years from now, with what we've purchased for land, hopefully that will suit our needs. So, Tom?
I'd just like to remind the people that are here that when we bought the property on Sanborn Road, as Mr. Gaudette said, we bought it for 10 cents on a dollar. And I personally, and with the committee here, we viewed every available site from Hannaford's to the Mosquito Bridge. And the average cost of a commercial site is anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million. And we got this piece of property at a bargain price. It fell into our lap, so to speak, and we're taking it and running with it. So if you consider the fact that we have 10 cents on a dollar and apply that towards the structure, we would still come out. If we had to buy a piece of property, the cost would be prohibitive. We wouldn't be able to present you with any kind of a building that would be adequate for the needs of the police department. So I just wanted to make that clear that we fell into it where the bond rates are just absolutely phenomenal right now, and I think it's a time for us to do this project. And I'm on the committee, but we put in a lot of hours with Kevin and all the other folks here and Mr. Drew, and we really feel that we're going to present a really good product to the citizens of the town. And we're going to come out on top. We're going to be a better place for it. I haven't personally talked to my friend here, Chief Cormier, on a lot of issues, but I'm realizing that the opioid crisis is really, really extreme right now. We can't put these guys in harm. Some of this Narcan, if you touch it, it will kill you. And we have to be able to keep these guys safe. And we have to have a safe building for them to come to, and we have to have a safe place for them to do their paperwork, do all the other things that they have to do. It's a tough job. Being a policeman is a tough, thankless job. And I think that they deserve a good building. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Our meetings are public, so if you want to come to our building committee meeting, yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the committee when we first started talking about this again. Many of you remember when we met but not like this. And I want to thank the committee for all their diligence and just relentless working on those hours. You guys have done a stellar job. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Gonna take all that down, so.
It does something for the look, but functionality of the building. This is the permeation detail about the building. I kind of like it, having something I can put in. But that'd save $18,000 that wood. That's how you get to 600 grand.
Wood especially.
Well, you can, but then we've got the same problems now.
What's coming.
Job here and area stuff. We all get it all done. Yeah, well, I'm sure I'll see you when it comes around to the library. We actually had a meeting this week with, we had a brief session with the city. It was open to and just listen about budget questions. Jim, they said they invited all the families. And it's only Ray showed up.
Wade was only about that much above the.
Oh, you used to go along? Yeah, no, it was all good.
Well, there's a little bit of, that was involved in the policy, because property. Well, we're gonna buy the property, they had said, well, we have to carry the money for the property and build a parking lot. He says, no, it's gonna be a public parking lot, so we pretend the parking lot's gonna be built. Now the parking lot's back on the project. That's the version I got. It's always interesting to hear also. It's a good group. I mean, they're passionate. They've got quite a bit of fundraising. They did admit the other day well, they're not tapped out, but they want to but they think they can run it for a while and still get things. That's pretty good shit. It's helping on the money. Before you get into the bonds and all that. A lot of I'm going to take some of these hills and widen it down, but they're right across the street. Security. All the stuff is in it. No, it's all extra. Yeah, no, he was funny. He was at the meeting. Robin mentioned trying to find out where he go on a little crossover there. He was good. He's pretty passionate. Yeah. That would tie back to, like to have this all in. I've been kind of rethinking shrunk down to probably 7 or 8 now. I think. I'm not on that selection, so Robin does it separate with the selection. I'll give him another heads up. Thank you.
So I'm in the ballpark, huh?
That was reference to your comment, the picture of it.
Yeah, no, that's.
I mean, that's it. Where it was, yeah, it's about.
The next thing is make a motion for Okay, we got a bunch of stuff, so you don't have to go home.
I gotta go sit down and go home.
I got cheese myself.
Jason, let me know how that works out for you.
I'll save you a bucket of stuff. Thank you all.
I'm gonna be keen to it.
Thumbs up, Pat.
Did you ask him, Jeannie, did you ask Brian for a cross on the?
Do this.
No.
Thank you very much.
He's not going to
You want this?
Huh?
He's not going to be able to do that.
Yes, he is. If we do it as an additional add-on?
Yeah. Off the top of his head?
No, not off the top of his head. No.
Oh, yes. I'll call.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you had one more thing before we go into non-public? We'll go into non-public.
The NRRA is having their annual meeting and luncheon, and they're having seminars as well. It's concerning the current state of the recycling markets and what the future projections are, and considering our prior discussions about garbage in Tilton. I would like the permission for the select board to go. It's $30 a person, and it's next Wednesday.
Yes.
Yes.
Go.
Oh.
Sorry.
Thank you for going.
Oh, no, I'm interested in the subject anyway. So this is good town information.
Okay, anything else, public? Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion, we go into non-public for RSA 91-A:3, paragraph 2, that'd be
Personnel.
the personnel, which is A, dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected has, 1, the right to a meeting, and 2, request that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. Roll call vote.
Constantino, yes.
Dawson, yes.
Bog, yes.
Jessamine, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
We are red is run. I'd like to make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session as they pertain to personnel issues permanent.
Okay, I have
Second.
All right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved?
Okay. So I have one more thing. You all asked me to poll the employees about what they would like to do for Christmas. I have a number 1 option and a number 2 option. Their first choice, Christmas falls on a Wednesday this year. So their first choice was for the selectmen to give them Thursday and Friday off.
That's what PTO's for.
And they say that you've done this before.
Yes, we have.
Okay, so that was choice number 1. Choice
Yep.
number 2 was to, again, Wednesday is a holiday, give them Tuesday off, and then on Monday afternoon, have a employee thing over at Onions with appetizers, and they would buy their own drinks. So that's what they have. I mean, we asked, do you want it? Some people said they wanted a ham, somebody, turkey, but after talking with everyone, that's what they came up with. Choice number 1, choice number 2.
So, choice number 2 is they have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off?
Oh, no.
So Tuesday and Wednesday off.
Christmas Eve.
Christmas,
Monday after
Thursday,
that.
and Friday.
Yes.
Okay. And Monday we have a to-do. Okay. And then the first option is they have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off.
Wednesday's
They have
a
Wednesday
holiday.
off anyway.
Right, but essentially,
So-
town hall will be closed for 3 days.
Right, and I did talk with Cindy because she was supportive of that idea. How is that, and how does that affect the town clerk tax collector? And she says she's in charge and she can do it, so.
What was the most popular?
Number 1.
Number 1.
Just get out of here.
Do what you want, I'm against them.
It's a family
PTO's
event,
for.
it's a holiday, and, yeah.
And
I don't have any problem with number 1. We've done that in the past. We've done it with in the past that I've been here. However, you have police that do work through the holidays, and that we have to have them on. So you would have to come up. You just have to say, well, I'm sorry, because you're on. Police are different.
They're union. Kidding?
Administration, you can do that with. Public Works, you can do that with, and then hopefully they don't have a storm. But yes, I mean, we could do that. But
Don't feel like you have to make the decision tonight. I know
No.
you asked me to do it, and I'm
Yep.
just telling you what.
Could I get, are the figures available, what it costs us either way?
Tim?
What?
If we give all the employees the holiday, which they're entitled to, plus 2 days,
non-contractual.
plus,
So essentially, what is it gonna
Can
cost us
Joe
to give
just
them
finish
Thursday
what,
and Friday?
can Joe finish his question,
Oh, I'm sorry.
please?
if we give the employees 2 extra days off at the end of the week, what does that cost the town?
Okay.
There's a lot of variables installed, but I'm just looking for a ballpark.
Sure.
For next week, is that good, Joe?
Sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Is
No.
it a month's worth of paid time when you consider everybody?
No, because what you'd be looking at is already budgeted expense. You would just not have the productivity during those 2 days. So it's really an opportunity cost rather than a direct cost.
Interesting.
That wouldn't cost us anything but customer service.
Right.
Okay, I have one last thing. Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion?
Do you have prizes?
Do we have a second? A second. All those in favor say aye.
I'm halfway to the camera.
Non-bid.
So moved.
Aye.
Just gonna make.
It was great, I wish you were here.